Ahem. Check. Finally. All right. Showtime! It's showtime! Almost. It's almost showtime. I got one more thing to pop up here in a second, and then we'll be on our way. All right. Well, let's just hit this one. Just go. Oh, and I froze. Great. Terrific. Look at that. Look how serious I look. That's no good. I'm going to have to hold on. That's just silly. Do we need a... Oh, my mouse is gone too. This is great. This is good. All right, let's see if we can get this thing started. Can we stop me up? Can we stop me up? Hey, there we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Sorry about that. So, well, let me just show you. This little guy right here, which has been a little workhorse. This little Sony A1, whatever 651, whatever it is, that I got off of eBay that I've been running the camera on for the last 2 years. Just decided to die. It just went away. It just had a sad moment this morning, and intermixed with you don't need to know this, but it's the morning show. You know, I could wait to fetch about this until Tara comes on, where we can both have a sort of a gripe fest about the ice skating uphill that is this experience. Now, I will be able to get this working again as a camera, but as a web camera in this current configuration. So, yeah. So I had to yank a bunch of stuff, and this is just one of my travel webcams that I use. That it doesn't look that bad. I mean, I had to spend some time configuring it so that I didn't look completely orange. And if I move from my lights, I'm varying versions of like rose gold as opposed to normal skin color. But if I try to change it while the show is going, or try to fix the settings at all, so yeah. So there we go. So the rip Sony little guy. I know, boo fuckity who, like you guys care, but it's, the struggle is real. It got so real that I even broke out my my old black magic. The old black magic that I do so well, which I used to film stuff to make it look like a Netflix film meets 1960s. Gotta love the old black magic. That's a Soviet spy lens on that son of a bitch. Now, we've talked about this before, but these are old, like, 16 millimeter lenses you can get from Russia. From they're like, we're done spying on ourselves, or are we? And so you can buy them, like, these things, to get like ones made in a decent country. They'd cost you thousands of dollars, but they chuck them in a box and throw them out in the Soviet Union, so the old Soviet Union. So you can buy these things, and if you have a 16 millimeter camera, you can attach them. Or if you have an adapter for the sensor on your, you don't need to know this. This is too much. All you need to know is broken camera replaced with webcam. Fine. And hopefully, this is my current state of that. There's always part of my hard drive space, and I'm sure you guys deal with this as well. It's part of your hard drive space where you're like, this might go wrong. There's a thingy. It might be the whole time you're doing something. Motorcycle riders know what this is. It's soccer mom in minivan or road ragey dude. You're always right back here in the back corner of your mind, like, could be a fucking, could be one of these fucking, right? Same thing. Russia could probably use the camera back. I don't doubt it. One second. Let me see if my screens still work. Hey, there they are. Look at that. At least that part works. Jesus Christ. Hi, everybody. Careful Vaseline filter. Yeah. This one's pretty good, I gotta say. Are they anamorphic? No, they are not. But they look fantastic. And they have a real kind of flavor to them. Filmmakers that exist out there. Come here for a second. Don't use video effects to make footage old. Just go buy an old camcorder, shoot in it, and convert the footage. Holy shit. I was watching a BBC documentary, as I am wont to do, and they actually put the fake fucking scratches over the old footage. Why? It's already old. It was like from the 30s. Literally, this was like World War II footage. And in the center, across all the footage, they had the standard scratch film stuff, and it didn't move shot to shot. And I'm like, you don't think we're gonna fucking notice, you weirdos? Okay. If you're gonna shoot something like, hey, this is supposed to be footage that was shot in the 80s and converted, go on eBay. Buy a fucking camcorder. As a matter of fact, buy a camcorder that is maybe 2 generations later than what you want to do. And then you can down-res it just by copying it to your heart's content. I don't know why they do that. It's the weirdest, and it looks like shit. It always, like, at some point, maybe AI will be able to, like, hey, make this look like 80s camcorder, and poof, totally cool. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my Boston Brian merch. I'm representing today. This is Boston Brian merch. He brought me one of these at the Sexy Liberal show. And thank you for saying you liked Florida Man. It's a good time. Hey, Wes, what's happening? Welcome. Hi, how you doing? Now, we've got a lot to cover today before Tara gets on, and I've been jibber-jabbering with the jibber-jabber this entire time. Hold on, let me close this window and open this window and stretch it out. I think, and this might be something we have to cover kind of in full later on today, because Trump's Iowa speech was the biggest sundowning event I have ever seen. Like, and Pence dropping out, no surprise. A bunch of them are going to do that. He's going to drop out for round 2. What he wants to do is, and he should have done this, steer clear of all this bullshit. Pence, could contribute behind the scenes if he really wants to. I mean, again, we're operating on good faith here, but if he wanted to correct the trajectory of the Republican Party and all that kind of shit, it's not going to happen during this cycle. It's not. This is open heart surgery. This is not exercise and nutrition plan period yet, right? Okay, so he unless you want to get in there and fucking put in a new valve yourself, which he's not going to do, to use the analogy. If you're the long term, we need to fix ourselves. So great. Well, wait till the patient gets off the fucking operating table, then you do that. Okay. So, but Trump had I guess there's no other way to put it, but pulled a Biden kind of in his estimation. So Trump, as you know, we have been talking, we've been watching his bullshit for a while, and I gotta say, I've let a couple of them slide by because they're the same shit, and it's like this muscle memory. At a certain point, the point of doing his entire rallies for me, doing them all live, was that he would claim that people would take his shit out of context, or other people would claim that, less about him, more about his followers going, you just chose that one piece, which they do all the time with everybody else, but somehow when it's him, it's offsides. But in the meantime, doesn't matter. In the meantime, he does this thing where he's like, it's good to be here in Florida. Iowa. The palm trees aren't a cue. Okay. Can Biden pardon himself? No. And he won't need to. Doesn't matter. So, yeah. So Trump thought he mixed up Sioux Falls and Sioux City. Now, it would be one thing if Sioux City and Sioux Falls were in the same state. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think if there's like a Panorama Junction and a Panorama City. Those kind of things where you're like, which fucking panorama are we in? They're fucking right next door to each other. They're counties or whatever. That wasn't this. Sioux City is in Iowa, Sioux Falls, North Dakota. He was in Sioux City, Iowa. He's in Sioux City, Iowa, because campaign trail. There is no Sioux Falls. I don't even know if there's any falls in Iowa. I mean, if there are, they're, 3 feet? So, yeah, like Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas. Right. You could say Kansas, like, let's say you end up, you're in Kansas City, and you're like, hello, Kansas. And you're like, fuck, I'm on the Missouri side because you're in Kansas City. You could literally go, hello, Kansas, hello, Missouri, in downtown Kansas City. You can do that. You just would say, hey, what's up, Kansas City, to cover your ass. Right? Meanwhile, these are totally different states. Sioux City, Iowa, and by the way, very different places. But this guy comes up and whispers in his ear. Here, we'll hear.
A very big hello to a place where we've done very well. Sioux Falls. Thank you very much, Sioux Falls.
Oof. Big place we've done very well. Sioux Falls. And then, and by the way, even RSBN is fucking with him. Takes the stage in Sioux City, Iowa. I half expect RSBN are such fucking suck-ups. I half expected them that the word city to go falls and then the IA to go ND, or SD rather, South Dakota.
A very big hello to a place where we've done very well. Sioux Falls. Thank you very much, Sioux Falls. And thank you.
Do you hear the booze? You're in Sioux City, Mr. President. Oh, it is. Hold on, back it up to here. This guy comes over and just saves him.
So Sioux City, let me ask you.
So Sioux City, let me ask you. So good. Now, this harkens back to a time, remember the whole Nevada thing? Where he made a big deal about pronouncing it Nevada. And if you say Nevada, it's big trouble. Okay, it's the exact fucking opposite. And he never corrected it. He never, He's never gone, hey, Las Vegas, Nevada, it's great to be here. He still says Nevada like a dumbass. He's just locked in. Yeah. So Sioux Falls is in South Dakota. It's population 170,000 or something. Sioux City's about half that, maybe 80,000, something like that. It's very different terrain if you fly in. It's now, you guys know I have a chip on my shoulder about the Dakotas, because why do we need 2 Dakotas? Because there used to be what was called the Dakota Territory, which was what is now North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. Part of it, anyways, not the whole thing. But during the Declaration, I think it was President Harrison, Benjamin Harrison, not William Henry, who I believe North Dakota, South Dakota. I went and looked at this because it was driving me crazy a while back because of the North Carolina, South Carolina, North Dakota, South Dakota. The Dakotas were both became states on the same day, and he literally did it. He shuffled the papers blind so that neither state could say we were a state before you were, which is fucking hilarious. But somebody asked Trump to spell Sioux. Oh, there you start. Okay, and by the way, Sioux, you guys know is an exonym that the Lakota Sioux were given, and it means little snake or thief. They considered the Lakota the thieving people because they would steal your land and kill your people and all that kind of stuff. And they did it by trading for pelts for guns with the French and largely siding with the British during the Revolutionary War. Along with some other tribes, and famously Tecumseh, retreating into Canada, creating some of the native territories that using basically like the British line of Canada. That's how the Canadian border was basically created. But Sioux is not it's basically like Little Snake City or Little Snake Falls or Thief City or Thief Falls. Again, exonym versus endonym. Okay. The endonym of the United States is the United States of America. Okay. That's our official title. We can call ourselves America. That works fine. China calls us Megua, and Mexico calls us Estados Unidos, right? That's the endonym version. Now, it's in the case of Mexico, it's simply the direct linguistic translation. In the case of China, they made up their own word that kind of sounds like America, Megua, but it literally means pretty land. I've told you guys before that San Francisco is the only city in America that has a Chinese name. They call it Jujinshan, which means Old Gold Mountain, because of the gold rush that brought Chinese settlers here to San Francisco. The Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people are all from the Dakota territories of Lakota people, and the Sioux are mostly the Lakota usually have the Sioux attachment to them, but the surrounding tribes didn't really make a true distinction between the 3 large tribes that were in there, because they all were in the process, because they got guns and horses before everybody else, of stealing the land from everybody else. So again, one of the issues that we always have with the discussion about native land or indigenous people is, which group are we talking about? Because somebody wiped out somebody to take that land. And you could argue that the only difference between white settlers and the Lakota in terms of what happened to the Pawnee or the Chippewa or the Iroquois even, or any of that kind of stuff, was that the white tribe had boats. That was it. So it's, whatever. Anyways, point being is that this is very distinct areas. This is his 8th campaign event in the state in over a month, which is why, if you're that far ahead, other than going there to get your ass kissed, are you spending so much fucking time there? It's like, I go around saying, if you're going to win Iowa, I go around saying, of course we're going to win Iowa. My people said you cannot assume that. There's no way Iowa is voting against Trump. Now, I think he makes up these fake conversations with his quote unquote people, just showing he knows better than everybody around him. That's another story. Right. You know, that's another aspect of his bullshit is that he just seems to have this uh like he needs you to think that he's a rogue outsider even though he's got a fucking giant staff and everybody supporting him. It's another version, it's a newer version of the myth. Yeah. So, anyways, now let's see, a couple other things. Oh, yeah. The other thing is that the stress, everybody's talking about the stress getting to him, that the stress is starting to get to him and the stressy stress. Okay. Yes, sort of. But also, I think personally that the story about Putin's heart attack freaked him out. I think anybody he thinks is equally invincible or on the same strata as him, if Kim Jong Un would fall down a flight of steps, if any other leader in the world would fall down a flight of steps, nobody would give a fuck. He wouldn't care. But if Kim Jong Un does, he'd be like, "Oh shit! If it can happen to him, it can happen to me." And the same thing is true. Oh, happy birthday, Galaxy Seeker! Hello. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Galaxy Seeker. Happy birthday to you. All right. Chat room, you guys are lovely. And I just want to say that. And all right. Putin, yeah. So the idea is that Putin had a heart attack or a seizure or both. And the question about whether he's dead and they're using a body double and all that kind of stuff, like who can know? It's fucking bullshit. It doesn't matter. But the fact that they denied his death so profoundly and then had him walking around an event where he didn't speak and just pointing at shit was like, okay, he probably did have a seizure or a heart attack or both because of the medication he's on for whatever's been ailing him that's making him vacillate from bloated to skinny and all that shit. So I think Trump had his own like, oh shit moment, right? And yeah, and a word about Matthew Perry. Now, I don't know, and I don't think nobody's saying right now. I'm sure somebody knows it within his family or friends, and it doesn't ultimately matter whether it was related to his addiction or if it was the fact that he had run himself down, and if you're a hot tub and the temperature and the humidity and sitting in it and all that kind of stuff, especially if you don't do it normally and then you start doing it regularly, you can heat it, before you're heat adapted, can fuck with you and you can have a heart attack or you can have a fucking stroke or you can whatever. And if you attach somebody who's had addiction and health issues around that, all that stuff can happen. So the material aspect of his death doesn't matter. For all practical purposes, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that it was a heart attack related to the him being in the hot tub and that, because it's not that strange. And especially when he's alone and he's trying to relax, and that means he's wound up and he's trying to not chase his addiction, so he's trying to find other things, all kinds of stuff. He's the same age as me. And yeah, and Richard Mole died as well from Night Court and stuff. He was a sweetheart. 80 years old though, and in a different, in the spectrum of things, a full life. Matt, on the other hand, like I met him in passing a couple of times, but it should come as no surprise that if you ever read about someone with an addiction in Hollywood, we never hung out. Not because I wouldn't. It's not because I would shun somebody who has an addiction. It's just I'm a fucking buzzkill. Now, if they're trying to beat their addiction, I've had a couple of people, famous people, that have sort of floated through my world and hung out for a little while. And I could tell they were like, who's in the business that I like that doesn't use, that maybe I can find other ways to be. And so that has happened a few times in my life, over the last couple decades. And yeah, Matt was had fought addiction quite a bit, and he writes about it in his memoir. And a lot of people who are getting clean say that his memoir about it, tells that kind of that story, right? like what it feels like, so they go, okay, I'm not alone in this feeling, and that ultimately I can get to, you know, if he could get through it, I can get through it. And he, for all practical purposes, had, although he was working on it. But I just, if you're a user and you're in party mode about it, I'll get you home safely. I'm a good guy to drive the car, but but I don't, I don't partake, and I don't, and I don't sleep with anybody who's partaking. So over the years, there's been multiple directions where I was like, nah, I'm out. You guys have fun. Um, and so occasionally people will show up and go, hey, I'm trying to kick, or I'm trying to get away from this, or I'm trying to find um, um, dude, where's my car? How is it? Of course, it was surprisingly, almost nobody on that was a user that was in any major way. How it wasn't born with the addict gene. He's a normie. I don't know if I was, Holly, because I've never done it. For all practical purposes, as bloody fucking Irish as I am, and as Scottish as I've got in my family tree, I absolutely would be. But I just got other shit to do. And because I started so young in the industry, if I was caught holding a beer in a comedy club when I was underage, it could cost the club its license, and I would never get hired again. So I was like, nah, pass. Best high is ultimate fitness and performance during athletics. I agree, Lucius. I would argue that that drugs are a trampoline, and I would and you can see the mountain, but you always go right back down. And I think it's better to just walk up to the top. I definitely am an anomaly. This is true. Do 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 do. Anomaly. Do 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 do. Anomaly. Do 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 do. I'm also, I've always argued that I don't do drugs because I'm fucking weird enough. I don't need any help being weird at all. So, sober mind makes sober decisions. Yeah, we had an argument about this the other day too, is about whether or not I qualify as sober since I've never been drunk. Because there's, sober is a relative word. I bet Jesse could explain it better. That's entirely possible. Listen, sometimes when I'm down in Baja, I've been known to smoke an entire canoe. 13 years sober and therapist, and I'm still worried he could relapse. Well, that's always a concern, Lisa, but don't worry about it. Just deal with it if it comes, but love him while he's not. That's and the friends that I've helped through, being the I have a great life. I have a lot of fun. Believe me, no one I will put how much fun I have at an event up against anybody who's high or drunk. Always. I'm always having a better time. Especially because I know there's no crash later. But genuinely, I just if you need a testament that you don't need it to have fun, hello. It's and again, this is without judgment. I'm just telling you, it's true. So, anyways, where were we? Because you got me off track again, or whatever. But yeah, sober. So I think sober is relative. You have to have been drunk to get sober, whereas I've never been drunk, so I'm just me. These are relative words. This goes right into my unsweetened iced tea bit in a lot of ways, but spawning got you straight. Yeah, having kids will do that, I think. My Scotch-Irish great-grandparents were teetotalers. My parents not so much. Well, temperance movements came out of that area because of the problem. You'll often find that temperance movements come from the areas that have the worst issues. You could argue that I would argue that in the United States, the move towards prohibition itself was started because of wife beating, because weed isn't a drug, but it is time. It is a drug. It's a drug. It modifies your thought process. It gives you thoughts you wouldn't have without it. That's my distinction between the sugar and caffeine idea, which the idea is that they bring at best, caffeine would bring your ideas faster because it's a stimulant. But I categorize different areas of drugs. That's just how I think about it. Again, not a judgment about the the qualitative aspect of it. I just make that distinction. I think there are mind altering drugs, and then there are things that speed you up or downshift you. You have cannabinoids in your body if you smoke or not. Yeah, your body makes them, right? Which I think would also argue that they're not, that cannabinoids is a bad name for them. There's another version for the organic version of it. It's like growth hormone versus some sort of versus steroids that come from horse balls. There's a difference, I think, in like the one you make yourself versus the, all right, never mind. Anyways, point is, you got to do a show in Alabama or in Louisiana. Caffeine fills reception in your brain, says it's had enough sleep. Yeah, it is less, it is, caffeine's bad, okay? Well, technically, coffee drinkers live longer, but and maybe you just think that people living longer is bad. That's possible. Anyways, all right. So, yes, inhaling smoke is unnatural. I don't care how natural other shit is. Maybe eating it, but smoking anything is unnatural. You have to train an animal to be able to breathe smoke, and it's never a good thing for its lungs. Anything you got to heat up to a point where it can burn your lungs or your throat or lead to throat cancer or lung cancer because of that is not natural. Period. End of story. You can argue that it helps you. You can argue that that's your, that it's worth the trade-off. That's totally cool. That's an argument, right? That this versus that, considering whatever pain you have, or getting you, improving your appetite while you're on chemotherapy, something like that, right? That would be worth it. How do you stay so positive? Well, I would argue, Georgina, you're positive. You are very positive. You just take it for granted. Like I said, this is where the Stoic optimism idea comes from. But I got news for you. Every single one of you is acting in an optimistic way right now. Did you eat this morning? Then you ate with the premise in your head that the rest your day is going to continue. If you drive anywhere, you do it with optimism because you believe that there's going to be something past this. Even you could argue that people that do themselves in are doing it because they believe it will end their suffering, which in and of itself is a bizarre form of optimism. So the human system, our bodies, our physical nature is predicated on optimism. We just take it for granted or aren't aware of it. Does that make sense? So, the fact that you're doing anything is an optimistic act because you're presuming everything's going to be fine right after it. Yeah. Now, the what we consider optimism in the normal parlance is this active awareness, and it's really about focus. I'll give you a good example. There was some articles coming up in a second. I got a couple of things to talk about, I've got enough time for this, I think. Okay, so we're gonna talk about this in a second, but Biden has this executive order on artificial intelligence that he put together about regulating it so that deep fakes and stuff will have to have a watermark on it, or at least metadata that you can look at. There's ways around it, and people will, but the harder they work, the harder it becomes to get there. But I got news for you. This horse has left the barn, but they're going to do at least some level of work. And what it'll do is keep editors in social media, will like insist on it after a while, or have a way to check and see if it's fake or real, that kind of stuff. That'll all be valuable. But we're already moving to a place where deep fakes and all that kind of stuff is going to be, there has a ton of ADHD, but he circles back around. Well, I have a lot of topics and very little. It's a fly by the seat of your pants kind of a show, and I've got very little to go. So we just kind of follow the train of thought, and you guys mix in. So you're as responsible for my the deficits in my attention as I am, because I'm I'm reading a chat that's 2 minutes behind. Maybe that's what ADD feels like. Who can say? But anyways, I guess people who have it. So we'll talk about that in a second. But and we'll talk about this as well, which is the other tech aspect of it. Future of warfare, a $400 drone killing a $2 million tank. This is definitely the way things are going. And there's a big article in this about that cities are going to have nets around them to catch drones at some point because it'll be just too fucking easy. Now, but Washington Post did this article today. Whoops, open up, silly. About like kind of breaking down where mass shootings happen and breaking down like who is involved in them. And this is going to be a strange conversation about optimism, but stick with me and maybe you'll understand where I'm going. Okay, this is the top of the article. At least 89% of mass shootings are perpetrated by men. Since 2006, 552 people have committed mass killings with guns. Now, 89% and 552 is a big fucking number. Both of them. 89% is certainly more than 50%, and it's it's almost 90% in your brain. Think about how your brain processes numbers. Then go down there, since 2006, which is, just under 20 years, 552 people have committed mass killings with guns. Okay? 552. There are 340 million people in America. Now think about where your focus has to be. And again, this is not about, pushing the importance of this issue to the side at all. But let me tell you how you operate psychologically when you hear something like this. Compared to what would be like the low hum of reality behind it. Also, it's the victim number that is about 3 times as high that I think we need to focus on more. But it's, and again, somebody's saying it's the assault weapons. There's something to that, but most are done with handguns. Also, most are done at home. Most are done are basically family annihilators. We changed the definition of a mass shooting versus mass killing. They try to make the distinction, but it's watery as fuck. I agree, CatFam. I think that's a good way to go, especially if God's telling you to do it. God's telling you to kill a bunch of people. Go ask him personally by yourself if you think, do yourself in and then go ask him permission. And if he wants you to do it, he'll bring you back to life. I mean, it seems that simple. If you're a messenger from God, we're talking supernatural shit. So what are you worried about? Anyways, that's silly. Satire. Hold on. Satire. Hold on. I don't even have my satire thing on this one, do I? Media. Let's see. Image. This guy. I know I have it in here. Whoops. There we go. Satire. Okay. So, all right. 89% perpetrated by men. So let's start with no difference between men and women. Nobody ever brings that conversation up when we're talking about this topic. Let's be abundantly clear. Nobody ever says gender is a social construct, or men and women aren't different, or there's no difference between men and women when we start talking about violent crime. That's the one area where everybody falls back and goes, no, there's a fucking difference. Yeah, there's a fucking difference. There's a difference. You ever notice that? And again, I believe in the equality of the sexes. I just don't think that equality means homogeny. Does that make sense? Anybody who grew up with role-playing games that knows that some characters have more hit points in others than others do in certain areas. Strength, logistics, magic, whatever your spell casting ability. If you ever play Dungeons and Dragons, some people have more hit points in one area than another. And men are not innately more aggressive. Testosterone's a hell of a drug. That's what it is. Because I guarantee at some point we're going to see as trans people get more access to care, they're going to have to manage the fact that when certain people who aren't born with testosterone producing glands that of a certain type start getting a larger dose of it, their aggressive nature is going to go up. So you're more aggressive. Yes, I am. I am more aggressive than your average woman. That will be just materially true about a myriad of things. Anybody can be trained to act in a certain way. We're talking about sort of innate hormonal nature. But that's the point. Men cause 89% of the world's problems. They also have created 89% of the world's solutions because they also do all the dangerous jobs and all that kind of stuff too. If you want to go there, like, no. And you could argue that men cause 89% of the problems because because a woman told them to half the time. What are you doing? Come on. Again, men and women are equal. They're just not the same, and that's okay. So, anyways, I met women with more testosterone than me as male. Well, yes, they exist. Don't get me wrong. Hal's more aggressive than Helen. This is true. So yeah. How many are manipulated by others? Well, right. Yeah. Equal rights. Who decides what is equal? Well, equal under the law, I guess. And this is, again, here's what's equal. Can both own property? Yeah. Do you have the right to sue somebody? Do you have a right to bring your grievances to court? Is sexual assault a one-way street or a two-way street? Like, can both argue that? That's what equal rights are for. That's what the rule of law is about. Women mature mentally faster than men. It's because they have to. Women are on a clock. Men are not. That is one of the biggest aspects of this. Women have a cycle where they are not fertile, can become fertile, are at the peak of their fertility, on a declining arc of fertility, and then can't have children anymore. And so they have to make a lot of life decisions that are very huge because biology lays that at their feet. Men don't. From the minute we can ejaculate to when we fucking die, we can make children. And we can leave physically. Many of us don't, but we can. We have no, there's no like post-birth hormonal boost, any of that kind of stuff that makes us attached. It's just true. Just materially true. And by the way, this isn't even, you can't even have an ethical or moral discussion about this part of it because it's not that exists that is part of the morality of it. It's what you do with it. Again, curtailing your testosterone and knowing that it has value in certain situations and it is dangerous in others is the moral distinction that a man has to make in his life. And it's why when I use the version, man that means male or man that means colloquially a better biological male, is why I don't consider Trump a male. Or I mean a man. At this point, who cares? But a man. I don't consider him a man. He's definitely male, as far as we know. According to Stormy Daniels. It's a disappointing form, but still. Insofar as him being a man in the colloquial characteristic meaning, which is that you recognize the damage and the danger that you can participate in because you're male, because you have larger lung capacity and a bigger heart in general, you have your musculature, your skeletal structure, all that kind of stuff. It can be very dangerous. Your management of that, your civility is what makes you a man, to me. Because anybody can let the dog off the loose, off the chain, just let it run wild, or it's just whatever. But to be able to temper it, to be able to use it when it's valuable, what I would call tonic masculinity, is the value of it. So, anyways, important conversation. But we're back to optimism because I've got 7 minutes before Tara shows up. 89% mass shootings are perpetrated by men. They make some distinction in, where is it? Race. Here you go. Men, there's the grays are women who've done it. And then there's some that are questionable. That's because they didn't catch them. But most of them are male. Like they don't know who did it because they haven't charged anybody, or the killer wasn't found having done themselves in later, that kind of thing. So, but they know it was a guy. Anyways, point is, in a country of 340 million people, watch me turn this into a way to be optimistic about your fellow man. In a country of 340 million people, men, women, and children, of those people, only in the last 20 odd years, 556 people have engaged in this kind of behavior. Now, it's dangerous and it's worrisome because at the number, it's 10 per state. Now, it's uneven because the majority of them also happen in the highly populous states, mainly California and Texas have the most, 50 and 35 respectively, I think. But think about all the guns we have in this country. The absolute, I mean, like most of the civilian owned guns in the world are owned in this country. It's ridiculous. Yeah? And yet, even with all those guns, in the realm of mass shooter, 556 in 20 some odd years. Now, there are a lot of other gun deaths, singular ones that aren't mass. They're 1-to-1, right? And that's a larger number. Suicides make up the largest number of gun deaths in the country every year. More people, and that's why they always say if you have a gun in the house, you're more likely to die from it yourself than you are to kill anybody else. That's partly why. So, and most people will do themselves in literally in the tens of thousands. That number outweighs the mass shooting part of it. Now, yeah, 552, 70, that's 32.5 per year, right? And when you and I talk about these things, we talk about mass shooting, we think about the one like that happened in Maine, for example. These seemingly random acts where somebody walks in and shoots a bunch of people they don't know particularly, or in the middle of killing one person or two people that they do know, they wipe out a bunch of other people because they're genuinely disgruntled. The Louisville bank shooter, Sandy Hook, those kind of things. But they usually start with somebody they know, and then it cascades from them. Right? That's how most of these, that's what, when we think of mass shootings, that's what we really think. Mixed up in there is sort of what happened on at the Halloween party this weekend, which was a fight between two people broke out in gunfire, and then other people got shot in the process because people are fucking popping away. That's was effectively modern gang violence and what used to be, bullshit Western behavior. Right? Okay. So, 3% of them are women. Most shooters are white. We're 60%. White people are 60% of the populace. 38% of this. Black, 29%. And black males are 6% of the populace. So that's where that number gets jacked up. It's also partly because of how they describe these things. Because like I said, most of us colloquially think of mass shootings as white guy walks into a place and goes postal and kills a bunch of people. But there's also a lot of like beef gang violence stuff that's laid into this because they open fire at a party or shoot into a group of people or shoot up a funeral or something like that gets lumped in with what we think of as mass shootings, but there are really exchanges of gunfire between gangs, right? You wouldn't think of, and it's particular to our time because back when the Italians and the Irish were fighting over, control of the liquor during Prohibition, for example, nobody would think of that as mass shootings. Even if civilians died in the crossfire, they would think of it as a gang war between, rivals shooting it out. It's just a modern part of it. It's just what we do is we kind of generically stack that shit up. And again, this is like my conversation that we've had about homelessness, that you cannot at any point solve a problem this big and complex by lumping it all together and calling it the same shit. You do not solve the problem of gang violence, for example, or interpersonal beefs or online beefs that involve people shooting up a fucking funeral. And, on the south side of Chicago, for example, which has happened multiple times, versus dudes going postal about domestic things, or like a red flag law would have solved the main shooter, but not a gangland style shooting. Does that make sense? You can't solve them. There's not one solution for these things. So talking about them as if they're one problem is also part of the issue, right? So, this like remaining 12% race is not available or whatever. It's usually what that means is mixed race or no distinguishing part of it, or they didn't catch the person, so they can't say. Most killers act alone. 85% of daily mass shootings involve a single assailant, and they make a distinction in this between mass killings and mass shootings. The other 15% of it, that's the overlap of, and they make it's weird how they do this, but there's one person in the car shooting, but there's two other people in like a gangland style thing. Like there's a driver and somebody else, and one person shows up and he kills, like he shoots into a crowd and drives off. Okay, that is included in this kind of idea. But again, I would say that that's a distinction. That kind of shooter is different than another kind of shooter, right? And you solve these things with different solutions. Just saying. Okay, not a morbid topic, isn't it all? And I'll tell you why. Because like I said, when you see numbers like 85%, 80, excuse me, 89%, you are dealing, hold on, I've got to open up my control room so I can bring in our dear friend Tara, who will be here in just a second. I'm bringing her, I see her operating in the back. We'll bring that in a second. Let me do this for you. Okay, so one of the reasons why we don't get to the point of solving a lot of these problems is what I would call reaction paralysis. Because the way you talk about the most difficult issues, addiction, homelessness, mass shootings, that kind of stuff, all the language around it centers around perceptions and body counts. Number of overdoses, number of overdoses who die, as opposed to our pot smoking friends in the background, the generalized, functional users that exist that you don't think about while you're talking about. They just turn into, it's what I would call vanilla is not a flavor part of the conversation. Vanilla doesn't become a flavor. It's something that other flavors ride on top of. Vanilla is very distinctly its own flavor, but you ignore it because it's a base, right? Same thing is true about the rest of the humans in your life. Your television and even my show and the internet is not a window. It is a microscope. And everything looks ugly under a microscope unless you're careful. Does that make sense? Okay, so let me bring in Tara because she's got a cat on her lap and I don't want to miss it. It's just too good. Hold on one second. There we go. Turn it in studio mode, and then I bring it in here. There's always this clicking that I have to do with the clickings. Here we go. Turn this off and turn that on. Whoop. And then I grab her link. Aw, that is a big cat, by the way. I'm just saying. I hope it sticks around long enough for us to. It doesn't decide to jump down right as I get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may. Can you hear me okay, Tara? Can you?
Yes, I can.
And I can hear you as well. There she is, lady. Tara Dublin, everybody. Hold on. Now I got to, hold on. I'll move that. Yeah,
look at this. You gotta get the full body shot so you can see Maxine.
Look out. You don't have to tell me. Hold on one second. I will turn off this friends loop. Where is it? Oh, I see. Hold on. I've got to turn this thing off, and then I can turn it off. Guest loop. Loopity-doop. There we go. Boink. We'll get there. There's Tara. Look at this big kitty. Look at this one.
That's Maxine. Look at this thing. This is Maxine Rodham Pelosi Dublin.
Oh my God. And definitely putting the Max in Maxine. Although I will say you're we, so that could very well be a kitten.
I am we.
You are we.
True. Oh, there she goes. That's it.
Exactly.
I'm hearing that echo. I'll try to ignore it.
Oh, you should. You shouldn't. But then,
well,
that's
true. There's a lot of shouldn't going on, Hal.
Yeah. I don't want to shit all over you. Let's see. So,
check two. No, I can still hear me.
Okay, hold on one second.
I look cute though, don't I look cute for someone who's fucking furious and miserable?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I've said that. I mean, is that better? Can you hear yourself? Did that go away? Did that change anything?
Let's see. Oh yeah, no, the echo is gone. Hurrah!
Excellent.
Now I can focus on you, my friend.
Lovely. Okay, cool. So, be a better human. It's a good one. And I'm wearing my Boston Brian merch today. Hold him accountable, which is his elephant Trump with a big long nose behind bars.
Jesus fucking Christ!
It's
How
much
more shit are we gonna find out about Mike Johnson this week?
Oh my God. Okay, so let's.
What is what?
Right. So, all right. In case anybody hasn't been following along, there's what I would call the Nestor effect in this story that has gotten my attention. And you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So for those of you who don't know, Mike Johnson has a black son that he,
adopted.
But he took in when he was a single man living alone and never went through the formal process of adopting him.
Isn't that called kidnapping?
And no, I mean, I guess if he's an orphan or he doesn't have anywhere to go.
But if he didn't do it officially, if he didn't file paperwork to
Only if somebody
official.
comes that he's missing. I think you have to be missing for you to be kidnapped. If nobody cares where you are, then you're not kidnapped, I guess. We'll find
Okay.
out. Yeah, yeah. I think it's a matter of if well, I mean, the state should have been looking for this kid otherwise. Although
Well,
he may have
yeah,
just
'cause
fostered him and just let it roll, which is a bit weird. But the guy doesn't want to be, he's an adult now, and he doesn't want to be in family pictures or part of the campaign. He hasn't talked about, he will occasionally bring it up in campaign things about like kind of his like racial bona fides in terms of I understand things in a way that, saying shit that basically they would get mad at Obama for saying, right? That like the Trayvon Martin thing where he's like, he could have been my son. When I look at him, I feel, of course I have that feeling, which is what you would say as a fucking human, but they jump down his throat about it. The same thing is true about like Mike Johnson seemed to be saying similar stuff, but it's just, and again, can I just say for the record, adopt, don't shop. If you're gonna, there are a lot of kids who need parents, and if you can raise them in a healthy household, I think that's fucking great. But what? And
exactly.
Also, how does this, what is this?
Exactly.
What the ass?
And does he get locked in the prayer closet with his wife, who's not allowed to get up off her knees for any reason? Is Mike Johnson actually Carrie's mom? Is it like, pray in there and hide your dirty pillows? I mean, what?
Or
right?
Robert De Niro in a whatever, A Boy's Life, where he's like, I don't like to look in the face,
all the things that are it's bad enough he's an election denying, repressed, compromised Jesus freak.
Yeah.
And he is Davy from Davy and Goliath, all grown up into a compromised trader from Louisiana.
Yeah, I have to say,
you remember Davy and Goliath, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, same claymation. You're talking about the same claymation house that did the elf in the Christmas special, and they have basically the same hair, just a different color.
For the longest time, I've compared Mike Johnson to Davy, and there have been times where I've tweeted at him in the Goliath voice, like, Davy, Jesus wouldn't like that. So, I'm not okay. Yeah, no, I'm not okay with Commander Johnson standing where Nancy Pelosi once stood because he wants to take away all of our rights. He doesn't want us voting, and he definitely thinks Donald Trump won the 2020 election.
I gotta say,
this is problematic.
Yeah, I gotta say, nothing will hasten the people to the voting booth on the Democratic side more than this guy. And since nothing he enacts can become law unless he passes it through the Senate and the president, I gotta say, like, this is the perfect power position for them to totally blow it.
Yeah. Oh no, they're poised to fail beautifully.
And he's gonna pass a CR. And they're saying you're quiet. I will bring her volume up as best.
Am I too quiet? That no one has ever said that about me.
Yeah,
before.
I know. I can fix that.
Do I need to?
No, I'll do it on my end. Don't worry, it's not you.
Right.
I'll boost it.
It's
over
interesting
here.
because there are times to be quiet and times to be loud, and we'll get into that in a moment. But
won't we though?
We'll stay on the Mike Johnson tip for a second.
So
just the tip. Anyway.
So Mike Johnson is looking down the barrel of doing a January or April continuing resolution to try and make this, make the budget a campaign issue. I think they want to do it in April. So, and I think that's the argument he's going to make with everybody else. Like, look, we're not going to do this before Christmas. If we shut stuff down and we stop veterans checks and that kind of stuff right before the holidays, we're going to catch hell from everybody and they're going to be right and stuff. What we need to do is put this in April when nobody's paying attention, and we'll use it as a campaign thing that we're the ones who will fix the budget, blah, blah, blah. That's right. What I think.
No one's going to be paying attention to the budget while they're paying their taxes. They're not going to be concerned about the state of the world.
Or they will be, and they'll be mad. Why am I paying all these taxes to pay off the debt if I blah, blah? Like, they're going to, it's actually.
Why am I paying taxes if Donald Trump doesn't?
That's right. Strategically, it's a good, April's the time. And that's the argument they will make. Now, whether Matt Gaetz and the rest of that crowd are smart enough to, beyond how too clever by half they think they are, to understand strategy and tactics versus blundery loudmouth BS, that's anybody's guess. But it won't stop them from their constituents from getting angry about it and demanding his head. if he does
I
it.
mean,
Even
I
if,
hope so.
yeah,
It's just, I think it just goes back to the fact that we have just normalized all of this abnormalcy in our
sure,
Congress, and we're allowing so much to happen. And like George Santos was in court on Friday again. That should be a bigger story
right.
because he's facing 23 criminal charges and can go to jail on any one of them. And they're going to lose their razor thin margin even more.
Yep.
And censure against Marjorie and the expulsion of Santos and all of those, like, we're beginning to sort of see something that looks like accountability. But I'm guessing that within the next week, Mike Johnson is going to have the House Ethics Committee shut down the investigation into Matt Gaetz because
Maybe
he
that's the
could.
trade-off for the April thing. And again,
I'm
if it
worried about
is,
devil deals like that.
I gotta say, I'm not, because there are other members of the Republican Party that are in fuck that guy mode about Matt Gaetz who don't want that to go away. They do. They don't. It's not just because he's a firebrand and he's anti-establishment, because he shits on them nonstop and they get death threats because of the crap he says. Because he trumps his way. Yeah, right. So he trumps his way through that shit, and they're all pissed at him because of that same reason. And they're not for it either. So he's got to weigh those people just as much. So I think he's in a Gordian knot of his own making, and he fucking deserves it, and I don't care. But
they'll
I will
all
say,
get what they deserve. I hope.
right?
Karma
Yeah,
has to
it'll
come
work
for
its
them
way
at
out.
her time.
Yeah. No. And the interesting thing was, the most damage he did to himself, and when these weird stories started to pop up, largely from Republican sources, about him as a person, was when he said that he believes Hakeem Jeffries loves the country and he looks forward to working with him to get things done for the America. Like that is literally like a no-go zone, like linguistically. Like, just to say that baseline thing, that Hakeem Jeffries loves the country. Think about that in the context of all of Newsmax, all of Fox, like the Five and all that kind of shit. Are you kidding me? Like that?
So are
them's
only
fighting
Republicans
words.
allowed to love America? Democrats aren't allowed to love America?
Yes.
Democrats aren't allowed to voice their love for America, and Republicans aren't allowed to acknowledge
Yes,
that
that's
Democrats love
exactly how
America?
they act. Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly how
Fuck
they
you.
act. Right.
My way or the rules for us, not for you. Rules for me and not for thee, and all blah blah blah. And it's all hypocrisy.
Other way around. But yes.
Whatever, blah blah blah.
That's what I'm saying, is that
me and blah.
he's in a Gordian knot because of this, and I don't care. I will,
Right.
The interesting thing is he'll be in the same situation that McCarthy's in. They are surrounded by the business class of the Republican Party has not gone anywhere. All this populist bullshit that they've been selling to try and lure zeitgeist RFK progressives over to their side to create kind of a second round 2 of 2016 where the Democrat loses the electoral college because of 3 states. That shit ain't gonna fly anymore, thanks to their attacks on Roe and Dobbs and the rest of this shit. Them wanting to shut down the government, their inability to just fucking govern. Everybody else is like, can we just get on with it, please? There was a period where the app mentality of the American people was negative towards Democrats. It was because people were like, what the fuck, just get out of there. Get out of my way so I can do my thing. Now Republicans have stepped in that. They're the ones who are in the way, and you're like, just want to swipe right and get them the fuck out of the way. And that's they haven't come to terms with that yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's just still no accountability for them. So as long as there's not, then they're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And they're all still doing Trump's bidding. Every single one of them who's still there. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's trying to censure Rashida Tlaib. And it's just like, because she got censored. And what they try to do to Democrats, what Democrats do to them. So if a Democrat brings a censure resolution against one of them, they have to do that. If Democrats impeach Donald Trump, they have to say they're going to impeach Joe Biden, because they don't understand what any of the words mean. And so they just, it's laziness. And it's almost like I keep comparing them to they're in the worst possible Florida dinner theater production of, here's the GOP playing out Donald Trump's, deepest wishes. And it's all a revenge fuck for Donald Trump. So, And I'm just tired of the normalization of it, and I'm tired of the no accountability. But they're going to keep playing these fucking games until we vote them all out, or
Right.
they are somehow removed by the legal process. Like if Santos gets expelled, Marjorie's not going to get expelled, even with
Right.
a censure motion, because as long as the Republicans hold any kind of majority in the House, nothing's going to happen to her. But
Right.
when Democrats take the House back and we have the trifecta back, there's so much that Democrats will be able to get done. And I
Yeah.
just wish that people could like remove the veil of Cult 45 for like 1 second and take a look at the fact that not only do Republicans never get anything done, it's specifically deliberate. They don't want the government to be open. They are pushing for a shutdown. They push to obstruct everything that makes the world good, our lives good.
Right.
And it's, like, if your entire raison d'etre is to obstruct Joe Biden, eventually people are going to be like, that's really not why I voted for you.
Yeah.
And none of them are able to take a step back and go, well, we all say we're here to support country over party, but none of us do it. And some people need to start making the rest of the party do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't care if you're going to be a Republican, but be one that existed in the pre-Trump. That's what the Republican Party was.
Sure.
When they talk about party of
Yeah.
Reagan, like Reagan's terrible. He was awful. And we can talk about all of the failings of his and all Republican administrations. But again, I will still always go back to the 2012 campaign when none of Mitt Romney's supporters ever called me a kike on Twitter. That never happened. They
Right.
didn't threaten my life. They didn't SWAT people and do what happens now. And the abnormalcy that the Republican Party has become and how they've allowed themselves to become compromised for whatever the reasons are.
Yeah, I gotta say,
It's where we are.
I trace everything back to that like sort of anger over Nixon, like, oh, we'll never let this happen again. So they kind of like, this means war, even though he made a shit bed of his and had to lie in it.
Right.
But in the case of Reagan's whole like, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, being the 11 most terrifying words anybody could hear, there's a natural through line to that to where we are right now. That's where it ends up. That's the ad absurdum, ad infinitum version. Like, I don't know how you head down that fucking road and don't end up there. It's going to get there. The only thing is that they thought it maybe would take 5 or 8 years, and it took 30 for them.
Right.
Approximately.
It's about control. When it comes down to it's about absolute power, absolute control, money corrupting people to the point where they believe that power and control is admirable, like what they're exerting, the way they're behaving. And again, you can say what you want about Democrats and you can say what you want about politicians in general, but there was a time where we expected a certain amount of comportment in their public behavior. There was a respect and a dignity to being a politician where you were supposed to elevate the conversation and say, here's how people are supposed to discuss politics. There's an intelligence to this discourse. You don't have to understand all of the, the smaller aspects of policy, and you don't have to be a total wonk when it comes to it. But if you're going to complain about your government, first of all, you need to do your civic duty and vote. Either way, wherever you're going to put your vote, at least don't waste it. And certainly don't squander your privilege of just not voting, because that doesn't help anybody.
Right.
And then you have to hold the people you vote to account. And if you see the people that you voted for are not behaving in the way that you expect them to, then you have to call them out for it. Don't make me be sitting here. You're not making me do anything, but Democrats are continuing to clean up Republican messes. And we're the ones calling Republicans in Congress and yelling at them to pass meaningful gun laws fucking finally and reinstate an assault weapon ban, because how many more people have to fucking be exploded and have to be identified by DNA unless their sneakers blew off and are 20 feet away from them and you can remember that they belong together or whatever. I'm done. And Stephen King, who just watched his state go through this tragedy, he's like, it's the same cycle. This happens. The argument is the same. And then the same old nothing happens as a result. And why aren't we tired of it? Why aren't Republicans tired of it? Why aren't they tired of having to explain why they continue to choose supporting the gun makers instead of the people who die as a result?
I'll tell you why. Because it's cities versus counties, and that there's a different idea, an experience of guns when you're in a city versus a county.
Right.
And a lot of people,
Yeah.
if you got to wait for the cops to come, and you know you're surrounded by heavily armed rednecks, you have to be another heavily armed redneck just in case. And I know the people I grew up around, and I know why they all had shotguns. And the reason somebody got an AR-15 eventually is because somebody got an automatic shotgun, and they're like, well, I'll get some range with my multiple shots in case that drunk motherfucker comes over here. And if I call the cops, it's going to be an hour. So I got to do something. And then in the city, nobody needs to fire more than 2 shots in self-defense, because they're going to hit somebody else. It's going to go through a wall and blow somebody's cornflakes away. And so we think about it differently. And so the converse is what Obama was saying, where they're talking at cross purposes. The issue that you have, quite frankly, is that here's what I would argue. The South and the rural areas need more cops. How about that? You guys want to back the blue? I agree. You need to put more of your budget towards police officers so you don't have to play
them
fucking
well.
Yes, and you need. I don't know if they're out in the woods.
I mean, they need to be trained to treat.
Look,
people
man,
like
you are seriously going to be able to need to hit the broadside of a barn. I mean that literally. I mean honestly, the broadside.
I know, but still, no one needs an AR-15. No one.
No,
for no reason. Have a shotgun that you need to stop and put more shells in. Have a handgun that you need to stop and you don't need a weapon that can blow away 100 people in 2 seconds or whatever the stats are. And I don't give a shit what the stats are. They're awful. Right. So no one, unless you are in active combat, I can understand why you want a weapon like that in active combat, not in your house. And the story that I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with firearms. I grew up in the middle-class suburbs of New Jersey in the 70s and 80s. But I will tell you, in the early 80s, when I was like 12 and 13, in my neighborhood, there was like a rash of burglaries that went on for a period, like over a summer. And we came home one night, we went down the shore, and we came home one night and we found our house had been robbed. And it's such a, it's a very violating feeling, and everybody feels like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Jewish people in the early, we're not going to go out and buy a gun. So we got an alarm system, and you put the stickers on your windows. We got an alarm system, and no one robbed us ever again. And so when I became an adult and had a house of my own, I got an alarm system because as a woman living by myself, I wanted to feel somewhat secure that when I went to sleep at night, I could still be there in the morning, and I could go to sleep at night not worrying about someone breaking in. And then even after I couldn't afford to have an alarm system, the stickers on the windows, if somebody thinks there's even a remote chance that they're going to touch your house and the alarm is going to go off and the floodlights are going to go off and the police are going to come, they're not going to break into your house. They're going to go to the house that looks like it can be broken into.
Just for the record,
so buy an alarm system, because almost no one dies when one of those goes off accidentally.
So my girlfriend's son, his girlfriend's apartment was broken into Friday night.
Oh my God.
And they were home. They went to, it was late at night. They went to the pool. And when they came back, somebody had crawled in through the window and stolen their IDs and stolen their wallets and taken his backpack and some other stuff and had gone up. Now the lights were on in their apartment. They have a Ring doorbell. They didn't have recording on it, so they didn't capture the person. So we're trying to get it from the Ring doorbells around them. But this person had no problem hopping a wall, hopping into their little like cubbyhole. She was on the first floor, which again, girl living alone, I don't recommend, but whatever.
Never, I would never.
And corner unit, but a wall about this high, not a problem. Hopped
and the
over
window
it,
was open?
went in. No, it was unlocked but closed. And she didn't know it was unlocked because these, like service guys had been there earlier that day and may have done it. So anyways, they came in through her living room window with the lights on, meaning that for all they knew, somebody was home. They didn't care. So the idea that they were more than likely armed or didn't care. And again, she's a girl who lives alone. is a really scary notion. So we're changing all of her locks, and we're going through all this process and all that kind of stuff. And I'm more than likely going to get her a Berna, the non-lethal thing that I have in the house that I gave my mom as well, that shoots, you know, tear gas rounds from a distance. And we're putting, you know, lock dowels in all of her windows and doing all that kind of stuff and changing, you know, and I'm going to set up a camera thing for that area. And she probably won't get hit again, because that's usually how it works.
Right. They're usually one and done with something like that.
Yeah, they don't usually hit twice. So so the idea is that, and again, I would like to move her before we even do that. I would rather get her out
I
of
was
that
just
spot.
gonna say, I mean, isn't that a
and
little
we'll do that
easier?
we'll do a once over. And I like, my house has I have thumbprint locks on the house. We have cameras all around it. And I, you know, nerdy as I am, it's very a Berna is people are asking, it looks like a real firearm, but it fires pepper balls, and they make you throw up. They're really harsh. They have bad ones.
Great.
They have like pepper spray level ones, and then they have tear gas level ones that are, you know, if they're, you know, if it's a home invasion, you just pop 3 of those in their general direction, and they'll vomit until the cops arrive. You'll probably get a whiff of it too, but nobody's hurting anybody in that situation. So I like those guys. The guys who run the shop are really cool. Speaking of shotgun, they've just created a shotgun shell. This is not an ad, but they have a shotgun shell that uses in any regular shotgun that shoots the same stuff in it. It's got like an impact concussion that will knock you backwards, but it will also, it's got tear gas in it. So if you want to scare somebody, you can clack, clack. That'll usually make them run off. But if you have to hit them, you don't have to kill them. That's the point. This doesn't kill anybody.
That sounds fine to me. I'm not pro killing anybody. So
and in a city, that's plenty. As a matter of fact, the tear gas rounds on this thing will stop a bear more than likely. Nobody ever says it will, because even bear spray isn't guaranteed. But the idea is that it's there. So the idea that you stack your non-lethal means like an alarm and all that kind of stuff, very valuable. And again, in a city, people are going to come. Like that Lowe's lights come on, they're recording, and by the time like they get through the door or they'll run away because the cops are maybe blocks away. Living out in the South like I grew up, there's fucking nobody coming. And the idea is that, especially in, if you're not on if you got shit internet and you're out in the middle of nowhere, which is again why Biden's rural broadband thing will change the structure closer to what you're talking about, where an alarm system will be an activator as opposed to a thing that recorded what happened to you so they can watch it, they can play it back and find parts of you, which is what home invaders in the South and out in the middle of nowhere do. What they do is they wipe you out, and then they take the hard drive out of your thing and they gut your shit. And if it wasn't uploaded, there's no evidence. And because rednecks tend to be all fucking paranoid about the tyranny of the government, they don't sign up for those things. They've got recorders instead of like signing up for Simply Safe or Ring or whatever the fuck these things are that record it someplace else. They're like, I don't want these assholes spying on me. So they record it at home. So some asshole can just roll in, if there's a gunfight or half a gunfight or whatever, because they know you're armed, so they just kill you right away. And then they wipe out your family and do whatever they're going to do. And then they steal the hard drive and nobody knows. So that's you're talking to two different groups of people about these two things. And the AR-15 thing, they'll tell you they need one because, tyranny of the government. Okay, first of all, motherfucker, they're going to hit you with a microwave or you're going to be surrounded. There's no fucking way. Even the Branch Davidians were getting grenades because that wouldn't be enough. And they had machine guns. This is pre-assault ban. They had purchased before the assault weapons ban. You could fucking find machine guns in this country. Let's be abundantly clear. The assault weapons ban, some of it stuck around in that an AR-15 is a single shot gun. It's a rifle. You have to pull the trigger every single time for every single shot. You can just really fast, right? As fast as you can pull, you can just stack bullets. But if you'll recall, look at fucking old 80s action movies and and shit. Like there's a reason why everybody had a fucking MAC-10. In America, like in old Steven Seagal movies and shit, because people had fucking AK-47s. Even the dude, there was a guy who shot up a place he had an AK-47 a little bit ago. It was a single shot. Old school. Yeah, but it was single shot. It was semi-automatic. He couldn't, it wasn't fully auto because the mechanism.
I just hate this whole gun culture. And I think the thing that I hate the most about the gun culture is the fact that it was created gets like Russian funneled NRA blood money.
Yep.
And what are the Russians great at? Scaring people with propaganda.
That's right.
So
making people hate their own culture, all that kind of stuff.
Hate their own culture and fear their own culture, and make
and
them
fear their
feel
neighbors.
unsafe in their own homes when they felt safe before.
Yep.
And as somebody who, I mean, as you noted earlier, I'm not a large person. So defending myself, if I had to, I don't have a whole lot of options, but I'm someone who lived in New York City. I lived in Atlanta. I lived in Boston. I now live in Portland. My life was threatened repeatedly when I lived in the suburbs in Vancouver, Washington. That's the only time I ever felt like so unsafe that I slept with a knife under my pillow. But at no time do I ever want a gun. Still don't want one. Still don't feel like I need one. I don't need that false sense of security.
Right.
Now I live in a secure building, and if someone gets into my building, I'm still not letting them in my front door. They can't. It's a very heavy, okay, whatever. I don't have a false sense of security, but what I have, I think, is a realistic one. And so that as I move through the world, I have never felt personally, physically scared or threatened by another human. Although the other night, I was the victim of a hate incident for the first time. I don't know if you saw, but I did DM you the video I made. I went to a Halloween party Saturday night here in Portland at a house party. And the theme was Rock the Boat. And I'm 54 and I don't give a shit about dressing sexy on Halloween. I don't think anybody should be made to feel like they have to. I don't care. I don't care about sexy. I'm single. I've been single forever. I don't care.
Right.
And I don't.
I try not to care about it, but it just follows me around.
Well, sometimes you just can't help it, Hal. But women in particular, as you know, have been socialized. Be sexy SpongeBob. Like, it's the stupidest. It's just make anything to be a sexy
I'm not here to yuck
cat.
anybody's yum, but I draw the line at sexy SpongeBob. Fuck that. That's just
and again,
that's
100%
perversion. It's filth.
Right. But and I am a person who supports. I'm a body positivity person. If you're feeling yourself, do it. Don't feel pressured is the point. I don't feel sexy. I don't look sexy. I don't want to be sexy. And I was not going to this party to try to meet anybody. I took Rock the Boat and I turned myself into like my own Jewish grandmother and wore this big like shapeless schmata. And I did like bright orange rouge and blue eyeshadow. And I put on my mahjong bracelet and I walked around going, where's the buffet? I'm cold. I stayed in character for a little while. And then after a while, you drop character and and I had like a lanyard around my neck that said Silver Seniors Tour, Rock the Boat 2023.
Right.
And it was a karaoke party. And the woman who was hosting the party isn't like, it's not my primary friend group. It was a friend of mine from my primary friend group who also knows her. So she's like a bridge friend. And so anyway, I'm at this party and enjoying myself. And I sang That's Life by Frank Sinatra. And the room was all with me and it was glorious. And then this guy walked in and he grabbed everybody's attention immediately because he was very fit and he was wearing like this bodysuit, like just form-fitting bodysuit, almost like Tron, but not lit up. And it wasn't.
I know what you're talking about.
The Rock the Boat thing. Okay, but like a full fitting and shaved, but silver foxy, and everyone was like, "Hey, look at that guy! Hey, look at that guy!" And I was like, "What's up with that? That's just weird. That's not boaty. What are you doing?" And so me being me, I'm like, "What are you? Are you like what? What is this? What's all this about?" I turned into Karen from Will and Grace, and I was like, "Honey, what is this? What's happening? What is this?" And so we just start chatting, and he got it on Etsy and whatever. And he's very fit, and we start talking. And he had, we're just getting to know each other. And his name is Steve. And then in the middle of chat, you're like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a writer. What do you write? Oh, I have this book. And what's your book about? It's this book, by the way. Anyway, so you have to drop the Dave Grohl name.
Point at all. I try to get her to
if
show
you're
it.
talking about the backstory. And so he starts, and I'm starting to tell him what the backstory is. And of course, if I'm a woman talking about a rock star, men immediately assume I fucked the rock star, which I did not. And so he keeps first not honoring what I'm saying. I'm already like, oh no, are you that guy that has to talk over women and blah? Okay. And then like, while I'm trying to figure out a way to like step back and get away from him, he goes, are you Jewish? And I go, well, what gave that away? The Jewish star on my necklace right here in front of your face. And he goes, no, it's because your nose is crooked.
Well, all right.
And I was like, oh, what?
Crooked.
My crooked nose. He goes, no,
Nose-
your crooked nose gives you away. And I was like, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say to a Jewish woman, hey, your nose is crooked. And then he goes, well, it's not untrue. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, then. He goes, a lot of fucked up shit going on in the world right now for Jewish people. I was like, yeah, like telling a Jewish woman to her face that her nose is crooked. That's pretty fucked up. And he's like,
also that it has anything with you to do with being Jewish.
I'm sorry. Did you expect me to discuss
did you ever
world
see
policy
Ivanka's
with you?
Did you ever see Ivanka's before surgery?
It's so like I had like a prop. I had this prop like bag with me so I can be like, I'm going off to Canasta, this tote bag or whatever. So I bent down and I picked up my bag because I was leaving his presence. And he goes, oh, are we done now? Because, I think he thought he was flirting with me. And I go, yeah, we're done now. I need to take my giant, crooked, Hebe hook nose.
I see.
Very far away from you.
Yeah. All right.
He's like, really? And I was like, oh, yeah, really. And I go and find my friend. And I was like, yeah, so there's a giant fucking anti-Semite in the kitchen and I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want to I could have caused a scene. You know me. I could have. If I was in a bar, if I was in a public place, I may have caused a scene with that.
Sure.
But I was in someone's home that I don't know well. And I didn't want to cause a scene. Halloween party. Like I physically, my body was on fire because I was like, I can't believe that just fucking happened. And I need to get out of here physically.
Right.
And then my friend was my friend who brought me to the party came out with me and she goes, remember how I told you I met that guy at the Oktoberfest and I was kind of flirting with him, but he kept poking me in the stomach and he was really inappropriate. I was like, yeah. She goes, that's that guy.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, that's Oktoberfest, Steve? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, you could have pulled me away from him. She's like, well, I was going to come over and get you, but you seem like you're having a great conversation. I was like, well, I was until I found out he was a fucking Nazi. So I left. I mean, I made a TikTok about it in my car because I was like shaking and I didn't want to drive right away. So I made that and I posted it and then I went home. And then I found out the next morning that basically he was driven out of the party about 10 minutes after I left.
Right.
People because she went right over to him and she was like, that was really fucked up what you did to my friend. And people were like, what'd he do? What'd he do? What'd he do? And she's like, oh, my friend is Jewish. And he told her she had a big crooked nose. He's like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I said that. I have a Jewish friend and he makes fun of his nose. And I was like, way to make it better for yourself, Steve.
Right.
So
I'm
Steve
convinced.
essentially got run out of the party.
So Steve just, I'm going to guess that Steve, lonely guy, has just recently got done reading The Game or one of these pickup artist books that talks about negging, which is where you dethrone a woman because you feel like all women are on a pedestal, so you have to bring them down and you pick elements. That's why he was poking your friend's belly. That's why he talked about your nose. It's what like it's so fucking early 2000s, like Limp Bizkit behavior, but that's exactly what it's exactly
Not
what he's doing.
Not a turn on, fellas. Unlearn that, please.
Gross.
I'm gonna prove I'm hot by sticking my titties up so you forget about my nose. Fuck you, dude. I'm not doing that shit.
But here's the issue, and again, this goes to even like the Louis C.K. conversation, which his unforgivably gross behavior towards certain women over the course of his career, where women felt like they had to put up with that shit or they would lose their career and all that other nonsense, which is terrible. Is that the two girls that went up to his hotel room that he masturbated in front of that became the kind of primary story, sort of like superseded all the other stories where he was like jerking off on the phone while talking to somebody on a business call and he said so. And you're like, you don't fucking, and he meant it. It wasn't like at two comedians talking where you're like, excuse me, can I put you on hold? I'm almost done masturbating. Like that kind of a joke you kind of expect, but actually doing it. The reason he thought they would be interested is because the last two girls who went up in a pair to his room did fuck him. And they did it because it was a stunt fuck, and they were like, that'll be hilarious. We'll sleep with the comedian. Don't ask me how I know that. But the point is that in this particular case, lone guy at party shows up in bodysuit. That dude is pulling every possible there's no filter because he doesn't know how anything works. If he did, he wouldn't have to neg a woman to get a woman. And so this is this is how those kind of people walk into that kind of shit. It's almost like the Karening of a man watching it happen. But that's where it comes from. It's like, I didn't realize. I remember my ex-girlfriend, Kim, was half Japanese and half Chinese. And if you don't understand the structural difficulty of that biracial nature, please, like, that's some shit. Only in America, but and everywhere else, them's fighting words. It's like I'm half Hatfield, half McCoy, right? But
right.
I took her to a family reunion, and everybody was super nice. Everybody was great. It was really sweet. She had a lovely time. She was a pastry chef. She baked like muffins for everybody and all this stuff. It was fantastic. Every morning we had fresh, baked goods in the kitchen. Everybody loved her, except for my mom's husband at the time. It was too late to be my stepdad. I don't know what the rule is. You can figure that part of it out. But his mother, who is singularly the most awful person I think I have ever met. Now, I've met more racist and violent people, but just in general, just like blech. Standard old racist, like redneck, upper class redneck lady. And she's like, well, Hal's lucky, you can probably get him a car, because she was thinking Japanese cars and this is like the late 90s. She's thinking from like 1986 and Gung Ho, the movie, which, never mind the fact, whatever. Like, that's where her brain was locked. And that's just that came up, that little racist tidbit just came up in the Pez dispenser of, I got nothing.
They don't know what to say.
Nope, I'm just a shitty person, and let me rummage around in my bag of bad personal characteristics.
I have no real
I haven't
life
brought this out in a while.
Talking to anyone who doesn't look like me, so when I find someone who doesn't look like me, I don't know what to say. There are so many people when they find out I'm Jewish, they're surprised. You don't look Jewish. What does that mean? Fuck you. Your name is Tara Dublin. How can you be Jewish?
You don't look like Sammy.
Exactly. No, I whittled my horns down.
Like
I mean, what? I have plenty of stories about when I moved from New Jersey to Georgia in the late 80s and had to transfer to the University of Georgia. And I was the first Jew a lot of people had met. And so, one person who was a grad student, I was sitting in the hallway at the drama department at the University of Georgia. I can't wait to write a book about this, because the University of Georgia drama department in the late 80s, early 90s was a den of sin. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the hallway, like it's maybe a month after students and teachers hooking up, all kinds of inappropriateness. I could sell a book on that.
You're adults. Anyway, fuck off.
I'm told, no, there were rules. Anyway, Southern Gothic shit. Anyway, but I'm sitting in the hallway. No one really knows me except I'm this girl from the North. And it was like right after my cousin Vinny came out. So they'd be like, hey, Tara, do my cousin Vinny. And then, because Northerners can do a Southern accent, but Southerners cannot do a Northern accent. Anyway, so I'm in the hallway and this girl, grad student, is kicking the Coke machine. And she goes, this machine just Jewed me out of a quarter. And I was like, it did what now? And she looked at me and she goes, it Jewed me out of a quarter. I go, do you know that you're speaking to a Jewish person? She goes, where? I go, right here. I'm Jewish. She goes, no, you're not. Your name's Dublin. And I go, you might want to tell that to my rabbi who bat mitzvahed me when I was 13. He goes, and she goes, you don't even look Jewish. And I said, yes, they made us take our horns out when we crossed the Mason-Dixon line.
Don't worry, I'll look plenty Jewish by the time I end up at this shit-ass Halloween party with this weird dude in a bodysuit a few years from now.
Just, oh my God.
That's right, yeah. I turn it on and turn it off like a light switch. Right.
Well, wait until I'm walking around with these. So anyway, and then there was another grad student I remember in my acting class, and she was complaining. We were about to go home for Christmas break, and she was complaining because her birthday was December 26th. And so she'd be like, and her name is, I don't want to say her name anyway, but she had one of those Southern names where she had two names and you had to call her by
everybody's
her two
a serial
names.
killer in our county, right?
Right, exactly. So anyway, she was, and of course, blonde, and I was also the first Jewish person she had ever met. And so she was complaining that people were like, here's one gift for you. Here's your Christmas/birthday present. just
Right.
like Jesus. And I was like, and she was complaining like to me, and I was like, oh well, yeah, that's probably kind of rough for you. My birthday's in April. No one ever says, hey Tara, here's your birthday / Passover present. And she
Mm.
goes, oh Tara, it must be so interesting to be ethnic.
All right, sure.
And I was like, okay,
Sure.
that's not the worst thing anyone's ever said to me.
Yeah.
But I would say that until Saturday night, when I had anti-Semitism thrown at my face,
Sure.
most of the anti-Semitism and abuse I've received has just been online. Like, most people won't go there with me in person.
Yeah.
There was one guy in college, I remember, in Georgia, who
Mhm.
did not cotton to the fact that I was a heebie hook nose
Right.
Semite. So he didn't like that, and he didn't get real far with me. But
I didn't know any Jewish people that like we had
in Kentucky,
one
I'm
person in
shocked.
Kentucky. Yeah.
No good
weren't a
Chinese
lot
food
of.
around there, I'm guessing, either.
Oh no, there's a couple places. And my dad there was a Japanese family that built a Japanese restaurant in town, and
Oh,
my
bless
did
them.
the my dad was their architect, so he built the
Oh, good.
restaurant.
Some culture
and,
in Kentucky.
it was
That's
good.
good.
Yeah. And but when I moved to Chicago, there's a lot of Jewish kids at New Trier. A
Yeah.
lot of them. Arguably the dominant religious group, if one exists in that gigantic school. And
Right.
my first experience was falling in love with a girl and her parents sitting me down and saying, "You can't date her. You're not Jewish,"
Ah,
which was a new thing in my life. And
yeah.
I have a picture that from back then that I took of her at a party after I'd had that sit down, and then we had to like kind of sneak around behind everybody's back, and not let her
Aw.
parents know. But ultimately it would never go anywhere. I knew it couldn't go anywhere. Even, no matter how much I loved her, she wouldn't let
No,
it happen.
because
Her parents, because I'm not
yeah,
Jewish. And that was my
my
first
parents weren't
experience.
like that,
Okay.
fortunately. But I
Yeah.
knew plenty of families that were, and
Right.
especially after, and I don't know if I've told this story on your show before, but after my bat mitzvah, we went on to confirmation classes, or what we called Hebrew high school, to make it
Hmm.
sound cooler. And the rabbi came in to talk to us about interfaith dating, because we're at that age, we're eighth grade,
Sure.
ninth grade, and he came to
Hmm.
talk to us how about just see where our heads were at. I think he was trying to take the temperature of the horny kids coming into their
Sure.
puberty in the room, and saying, how many of you would date somebody who wasn't Jewish? And some people raised their hands because we're like, someone likes me? Yes, please, thank you.
Right. Right.
But then he went on to say who would marry someone who isn't Jewish, and mine was the only hand that stayed up. And everyone was like, oh, because they couldn't
Hmm.
believe it, because we're like this tribe, and we're supposed to stay within the tribe and be tribes
Right.
people. And I get that. And but it's also kind of culty. And so he was like, well, how can
It's
you think that way?
for the
And
record,
I
it's
said,
awful. It's
well,
just
no, I
awful.
mean,
Like,
encouraging
yeah.
any group think is
And
dangerous. It's all culty and blah, 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 blah. But what I said to him was, I'm not going to fall in love with somebody based on religion. I mean, if I meet somebody and he's black and a Zen
Mhm.
Buddhist, and I love him and he
Right.
treats me well and would be a great dad, who
Exactly.
cares? Who
Yeah.
cares about with the up there stuff? And we have no proof that anything's up there anyway. So who cares? And especially in comparative religion class, where I'm learning basically all of this shit is the same.
Hmm.
So, love your neighbor. Okay, that's cool. We're the chosen people. Prove it. Like, how do you know that? And so he was like, well, Tara, it's one thing, but if you want to get married, we have to make Jewish babies and Jew. And I was like, well, there's 30 other people in the room who just told you they're going to get married and make Jewish babies. So I think we're covered. I think
Right.
we're good. And
Right.
so then I went home to my parents. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go back now. And they
Right.
were like,
There's
well, what's
also
up?
there's all
And I was like, it's
this
a cult. I'm not making, nobody gets to tell me who I'm supposed to love and
right.
who I'm supposed to marry. And like almost made me want to like specifically
Mhm.
not date Jewish boys. And especially since that's what I grew up around. And I grew up a lot around not in my specific town, but the town next to mine, Homedale, New Jersey, the town next to mine. There
Mhm.
was a lot of money in Homedale. And a
Okay.
lot of those rich Jewish kids went to my temple. And there's a different kind of Jewish mother. If it's a Jewish mother with money,
Mhm.
then her son not just hung the moon, but deserves to own the moon. He is perfect. He
Right.
can
It's a
do no
princeling.
wrong. He is perfection. Put him in a protective bubble forever.
Right.
And if you don't treat her son like that, he's not going to like you very much.
Yeah,
And
you
so
have
I
to,
grew up
like,
with a lot of
well,
guys like that, which is a huge turnoff.
I had, okay, so my first girlfriend when I was 11, Lois, had I stayed in Kentucky, we would have gotten married because that's how it's done.
At
But she
age
was
12.
Right. We went to Cotillion and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff, and
Cotillion.
absolutely, I was like, she had a little Kate Jackson haircut and braces, and I was madly in love with her, and she was very smart.
Mm,
And so when I moved to Chicago, it was like it was like pulling roots out of the ground. It was like pulling veins out of your skin because I was leaving
right.
a space that I was, where you were on a trajectory, but I knew I had to do it. And
Right.
when I got up to Chicago, I wasn't just first. It was my first experience of more than one girl liking me at the same time, which was very weird. That and the other thing was like the idea of choosing who you're going to date and who you're going to go out with was a brand
Mhm.
new experience. And I'm 14, 15 years old. And the other thing is I wasn't sport fucking. I was in relationship mode because that's how I was raised. So I didn't, and the music I listen to, being a hair metal fan and all that kind of stuff, is full of everlasting love ballads. I got news for you. As much as there's like a sexy "I'll be your backdoor man" Led Zeppelin kind of affair, there's a lot more, I'll always love you stuff in the
Yes,
kind of
there
stuff I listen
is.
to, and I meant it. I've been a serial monogamous my entire life because I always go in with the best intentions, not like fuck it, whatever, let's see, blah blah. That
Hit me.
said, especially then, in high school where I was like, there's like, it was to the point where I did not understand the concept that people would go, oh, people are just being with people just to notch them off their belt, or just as like the idea that you would have, what's the word, like, uh, conquests where you know what I
Hmm.
mean? I didn't get that because people were like, that's just so impersonal. And I'm like, at this point I was like, but there's so many wonderful people in the world and half of them are fuckable.
Right.
They're just
Let's fuck them
great.
all.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
What's wrong with? But it was from a like experience the person point of view as opposed to just like, well, did that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which I think
Right.
is the general thought about it. And so I was just in the business of falling in love. Like at that point, I was like,
Hmm.
and there was a lot to love. Like the girls I dated in high school, still to this day, I have fond memories of them, and like whenever they appear in my head, as do I would say 98% of my exes. My immediate thought is, I hope they're having the best day ever right now. And
Oh, and you
the
know what?
other,
I bet they remember you fondly as well.
I certainly hope so. But the other 2%, I'm like, I hope they're okay. Like it's not even like I wish them ill. I'm just like, I hope they're okay.
Yeah.
Like there's almost kind of a baseline.
Right.
But in high school, I was, I had just come from a 4-year relationship, and the idea that you love somebody, stick around. If you find that person, that's the point. Find that
Right.
person.
Exactly.
And I, for all practical purposes, fairly shortly, within about a year, felt like I had found the person. I was like, oh shit, this hurts. This is
Hmm.
big. I look into her eyes, and the whole world goes dark. That's all I see. And then to
Hmm.
have her fucking dad sit me down in a chair and go, look,
It's the
um,
stupidest thing. And
we
it's the
know,
stupidest thing to not let two people be together. It's a stupid reason.
yeah. And I
It's a
maybe
stupid
headed it
reason.
off because he could see it was real, because he could see that, she and I felt for each other. But he put the kibosh on it but early. And she went away to like Jewish camp during the summers, so she couldn't hang around essentially, because that's what would have happened. I'd have,
So
whatever. Anyways,
dumb. It's so dumb.
it's
The
very dumb.
only time I've my mother never told me to not date a specific person or
Hmm.
whatever. Nothing. Never one time.
Right.
When we moved to Atlanta and I had a transfer, I was at Emerson College in Boston and I had a transfer to UGA, which was totally fish out of water, really hard
Hmm.
transfer for me. The only thing that my father said, and my father and I don't have a relationship, and we had a bad one back then. So the only thing he said to me was, all right, just don't bring home any schwatzes.
Right.
And I was
Black
like,
black
immediately
dudes.
wanted to date the
Right.
blackest man I could find because I've always been drawn to the Black community. And the first, I think we may have even touched on this one time in your show early on. My first memory of feeling love and feeling safe and feeling protected is actually not from either of my parents, but from a Black woman
Hmm.
who was working in our house when my brother was born. She was a nurse. And I don't want it to make it sound like the movie The Help in any way,
Hmm.
shape, or form. And so I'm really careful about how I tell the story. But in the early 70s, Jewish families, or a lot of white families, I'm sure, hired nurses to take care of their newborns so that the mothers could sleep at night. Like, it was a totally different time.
Hmm.
And a lot of those nurses were Black women, and they would stay with you for like 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And my mom was like postpartum and had to plan my brother's bris, and she was very busy, and the house was always full of people, and no one was paying attention to me except the nurse, Linda the nurse. And she
Hmm.
took care of me and she bathed me. She was the first person who taught me about agency and consent over my body, even though I didn't know those words at the time, because she told me
Hmm.
when I was washing myself that only I'm the only one who touches, like all of that. And
Hmm.
so my affinity for Black women is innate. It's been in my body forever. And therefore, it extends to the entire Black community because
Hmm.
Black women are caretakers. Black men who honor Black women, to me, are just like, I love them so much and I love the support. But as a white woman, you have to be really, really careful, even, forever, how you frame your support, because it's not the magical, savior complex. No, I don't want to push that. It's about being supportive.
Yeah,
And
I
so
gotta say,
when I'm drawn to dating
yeah.
Black men and my father says, no, you can't, it's like, and I tried when we first moved to Atlanta, I worked with a guy at a Ruby Tuesday in the Lenox Mall, and his name
Hmm.
was Dexter, and he was so beautiful. He was so beautiful. And we kind of liked each other, and we hung out a few times, and he was like, Tara, I think you're really cute, but if I brought home a white girl, my mother would kill me.
Hmm.
I was like, does it count that I'm Jewish? Like, I'm in a minority. Like, does that get me any points? And he was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, that would make it
So,
worse.
and it's stupid. All of it is
Right.
stupid.
It is stupid.
Is my
Here's what I would
biggest
say is,
problem.
and I appreciate you in this, because, and it's one of the reasons why that you exist within the depth of empathy that you have. But never feel like you have to explain why you like people.
I know.
There's a lot of tap dancing that liberals especially do about explaining why they like people of other cultures or other colors, which is very silly. It's okay. I'm giving everybody in my chat permission to talk openly about the people in your life as people in your life, not to categorize them like a roll of lifesavers, like everybody seems to do, because of this idea of, because branding has fucked us all up, and we think that these two key characteristics are the only thing that matter about me. So
Right.
just saying that.
And I get it. I get it. Get it. And you get it. Like, I know I'm white folks. I'm not white people. I know that. And I've been told that. And I mean, I had a lot of fun with the riverboat incident.
I just think you're a rascal.
I am a rascal, but I also think it's our responsibility as humans to be allies to the communities we weren't born into. And not enough people believe that, which is a huge problem, because I'm happy to be your ally.
Here's
if
the
you're
thing.
not a dick,
I think that's
Yeah,
but see, I think I will say, I think that's the default.
It should be. Your hate is taught to you. You're not born hating. You're not born believing. And I am all about elevating without appropriating. And that's, to me, an important distinction, because you can't appropriate another culture and pass it off as your own as much as you want to try, white men. There's that sense of white privilege extending further than it actually does. Like, white guy with dreads, white woman with dreads, like, stop that. That's not our culture. Or
hold
white
on,
men,
wait.
or the white
Pause.
people who, it's like white people who complain that they can't say the N word. There's
Yeah,
a line that we should not try to
These are not, yes, these are not in the same category. Vikings and Northern Europeans had dreadlocks as well. That is not an uncommon hairdo, especially for people with fine, thin hair in the north.
Do you think that that's what people think when they see a white dude with dreadlocks?
No, I don't care what people think. I think the white dude who grows his dreads out, who's not trying to be a Rastafarian, is trying to be a Burning Man type of dude, and is wearing
but
leathery
if
kind
he
of
doesn't
shit.
show up in full Rasta colors, going mon, or whatever they do.
It's not that. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again,
as long as it's appreciation without appropriation.
It's always appreciation. It's a fucking haircut. There's nobody who wears dreads because I'll show black people. That's just fucking ridiculous. And the appropriation of it, if anybody did do it in those contexts, like when Eminem had his little like tight cornrows for a little bit or some shit like that, that's because that guy is surrounded by and embraced by and within that culture that wears their hair like that, which does not include all black people. So the idea that somehow somebody's going to do that is just fucking dumb. And here's the thing. It's a fucking electronic rabbit. There are so many social issues that are fucking electronic rabbits that are meant to make the dogs run, that have nothing to do with human interaction. Nobody thinks like that when they're saying hi to somebody one-to-one, seriously. And if they do, it's because they've just come off a bad experience that has nothing to do with that person that's right in front of them. Deal with the people right in front of you, and you will be constantly, I think, 80% of the time, like 90%, 98% of the people at that party you went to were perfectly fine. And that's that low hum optimism that I want people to fall back on. Because what we tend to do, because we're problem solving animals, is to focus on the problem part like a fucking laser. And it's not indicative of the general gross humanity around us. The vast majority of humans of any stripe. And every day of 8 billion people on this fucking planet, all but 200 million of them are getting up every day trying to take care of their kids, smile at everybody they meet, sell something in their shop, find a new deodorant that works, remember to floss. Like, they're doing all that shit. And we take all that for granted, and we can't. I feel like we have a personal responsibility to, on occasion at least, temper ourselves, recognize that our empathy and our pursuit of solutions and our fear of danger, that we can laser focus on certain situations like that, can make us forget. That hands over so much power to the awful people on the earth. Yeah. It's no wonder that they elbow their way to the front of the line so much, like Trump does. It's because it's part of our amygdala. It's part of our our panic reflex. It's part of our fight, flight, or freeze reflex. And my point is, my gut reaction is, and maybe this is why somebody was asking me what keeps me so optimistic or whatever, how to keep positive about stuff. Probably the single thing is that my fallback response whenever I encounter that is automatic. I don't do it mechanically. I don't go, okay, remember nice people, but that I fall back on all the lovely human beings that I have in my life. Like, that's the majority of my experience. So I'm aware of that difference between the majority of the experience if I have of humans and the minority circumstance where somebody might be an asshole or whatever, to the point where they are amusing. And maybe that's the comedian's reflex, is because I've taught myself over the years, what's funny about that fuck up? What's funny about that person? And the reason you could find what's funny is because you recognize the vast majority, and you have faith in the vast majority of human beings you interact with being okay. And if you don't believe me, and if you think I'm being Pollyannish about this, go in and say hi to somebody behind a counter someplace. And I guarantee you, they'll do their best to smile back at you and be nice. And if they're having a rough day, they'll even let you know, which is a good way of communicating, and an honest person telling you how rough their day is. They're not a bad human being. And the vast majority of people you're going to interact with are bright, shining lights if you let them. And so many times we get laser focused on this. Well, if I say it this way, this person will be upset because, and we set up this fucking chain reaction of explosions to this nuclear bomb that's going to go off emotionally if we chase this down. Right? If we go, if I don't give this guy what for, and other people think that's okay to act like, and then they lead to this will cascade off into the world will be full of monsters. And
it's one thing when I get dragged on Twitter for being Jewish, right? Mm-hmm. I have choices in that moment because it's on a screen. I can share it and say, see, this is what we're dealing with. I can block it. I can delete it. Mm-hmm. I have choices. The fact that it was standing right in front of me and caught me completely off guard, because we hadn't brought up anything political in the conversation. We had not been talking about ethnicity in any way. We had not been talking about anything with any sort of gravitas other than what do you do? Where are you from? Like, it was all very basic, getting to know you, standing in the kitchen of a party, chit chat. And you thought or I thought, and again, I did not go to that party to meet anybody or flirt with anybody. I'm very out of practice. I don't know if someone's flirting with me or not. In
Sure.
his mind, he was.
Yep.
And
which also puts the anti-Semitic part in a little bit of a pocket that he obviously would fuck you. So it's obviously a variation on that theme that doesn't
like, trying to push it and see where my boundaries were, because if I accepted that and made that part of art, like, it's so gross and so misogynistic. His attitude toward me, he was already talking over me. He was already negating what I was saying. And then he was also kept trying to get me to drink alcohol, which I really don't. And I was like, I don't drink. And he's like, oh, try it. I'm like, I don't drink. Oh, just try it. Oh, just have some. And I was like, well, do women not say no to you? Because I'm saying no to you. And it was a lot of, like, in a very short amount of time.
There's a lot going on in this.
A lot going on. And also, I will say that, going back to one of your points, the fact that he walked into that party wearing that bodysuit and had that sort of look at me. Yeah, I'm here for this reason. The bodysuit left nothing to the imagination. That man was hung like a newborn. So he was not. It might have been cold. Nothing.
Portland is not a Caribbean city. I'm just saying.
That was. I mean, he was definitely a white man, blue-eyed, Germanic, perhaps. I don't know, but he wasn't going to please anybody, and maybe that's also part of his.
Maybe he's a grower, not a shower. Maybe that's. What
I don't really care. What I know is that he's a fucking asshole, and he's not going to be welcome back in her home.
There we got it. Now we got down to it. Here we go. Now we're back to dealing with the things about him he can change, because of the length of his dick is an immutable characteristic.
But he also
the fact
pulled
that he showed it to everybody.
I've got a Jewish friend card, and he's lucky he didn't pull that shit in front of me, because then
you had already made that.
Hold on,
you had already made that decision about his dick well before that came up.
Right, but it was also what you said. In that moment, first I was processing, like, this is really happening. This is really okay. I had a choice in that moment. I could have made a huge scene. If I did, that's what people would have remembered, though. Oh, this chick at this party I went to made a huge. She was screaming at this guy first. I don't know why. Instead, I quietly told him to go fuck himself. And then I quietly went to a couple of my friends. And I said, I'm leaving because of this reason. And then they went to him and they were like, what the fuck did you just fucking do, you fucking asshole? And they made the scene. Yeah. Which is better. Because then it was their party. I left because even if I had been in the room when it happened, I still would have been like, hey, thanks for getting my back, people who don't even know me. Thank you for yelling at him. Thank you for this. I need to go now because my whole body's on fire. And I can't stay here. I can't stay here because this house now represents the house of an anti-Semite was in here. And I'll get over that. I will get over it. I can make it. I'm already making fun of how he's hung like a baby. Again, I made the video over. We're all over. Everyone's trying to get something out there. I don't know. But I made this video, and one thing that I'm very encouraged by, because the last time I checked, it had something like 350,000 views on Twitter at the moment, and it's like 1,000 views on TikTok. Almost 100% of people have been like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. I'm so sorry. I can't believe. Holland Taylor, the actor who is with the wonderful actress Sarah Paulson in a couple, and Holland Taylor, who's on the morning show right now. And she responded. She's like, I can't believe you're so beautiful and you spoke so eloquently, and fuck that. Basically everyone's like, fuck Steve, because his name is Steve. Like, bye, Steve. And I shared the text from my friend where it's like, everybody took up for you and hustled him out of there. And he did the but my Jewish friend. Everyone's like, fuck you, get out of here. Yeah. One person, of course it was a guy. One guy responded with, well, it is a crooked nose. And it's like, well, fuck you, dude. But interestingly, a woman responded who claims to be Jewish. And she was like, well, maybe he was clearly attracted to you. He's clearly attracted to Jewish women because he asked if you were Jewish. And I said, he said I had a crooked nose. Like, I don't know how much more anti-Semitic you get. And why would you think that was a hot thing? Why would you find that a turn on? Why would you take criticism and be like, he likes me?
Oh, hold on.
No,
the criticism aspect, I would agree. Like but as somebody who's always liked big noses, I'm not kidding. That I like a profound proboscis on a woman. I've always felt like Cher has a rather prominent nose. I always found that incredibly attractive when I was young. I was very believe me, I was attached to it. Now, unfortunately, I'm in the situation of having the perfect comedy nose, just funny enough to be
but not to
usable,
take away.
but not distractingly funny. And so, in many ways, I do have the perfect nose. So it's very difficult for me to even talk about this. I do have nose privilege. I have large nostrils, but and a small bulb at the end, which is great for comedy's sake. But it is straight and it does have a like it is the nose.
It doesn't define you ethnically. It
at
doesn't
all.
put you in a group.
Nope.
You're just Hal.
Except the big nostril part. But what?
I
but
mean,
yeah.
well, you know what they say about. I don't know what they say about big nostrils. My mother had her nose done when she was 16, and there are no existing photos of her old nose.
Sure.
And when I was born,
purge.
one of her best friends said, "How was she born with your new nose?" And then as I got older, whatever this is, my father had a big nose. He's big, swarthy, Jewish, dark, whatever. The only time I never thought about getting my nose done, even though Jews never. I had one of my friends a long time ago here in Portland, a gay friend of mine. He was like, "How come you never got your nose done? I thought all Jewish girls get their noses done." And I was like, "Oh, really? Okay."
No, just just the Trump girls. Again, yeah.
That's a converted Jewish girl, though, and she doesn't count. And fuck her. By the way, all the Trumps have to testify against each other this week. Isn't that fun? Yes. Isn't that fun? They all get to go to court this week. It's almost like someone put up like a comedy guest.
Don't get me all mad
schedule.
at the dating world for what you had to go through, and then turn me on with political facts.
But see, that's where my sexy comes back. My sexy comes back when I start talking about politics, right? And that's where I can maybe generate some heat. Maybe someone will fucking hire me already.
Look out.
Because
all right.
we have a whole week of Trumps in court testifying.
I know.
Ivanka has to testify against her daddy and her brothers.
Right.
All my fingers. All my fingers, because Schadenfreude is even more delicious when it's
Don
served
Jr.
up.
posted an old interview with his dad on his Triggered podcast because he can't do a new one.
Because he doesn't know if he's in Sioux Falls or Sioux City or
right, but he also doesn't know.
Or who am I suing?
Right,
who am I suing? What city am I in?
Eugene Carroll's suing me, and I'm going to lose again.
Yes,
but
he is. He's going to lose
partly
every
because
time.
it's because they can't discuss the case together because they're both in the gag order, and they can't if they start talking. It's so fucking good. It's just so fucking.
It's great.
Good.
You know what's even better is I'm blocked by Donald Trump and the main 3 adult Trumps. So I have the blocked by Trump
the whole
quadfecta.
Set. If you send in the top of the cereal box, you get the special Lara Trump singing action figure with the broken microphone and the big triceps.
The cardboard record would sound better. Remember they had those like cardboard records you could cut out from the back of cereal boxes?
Remember,
and you could play it on your Fisher Price thing. And
I got
her
classic.
That would sound better than Lara sounded. I don't know who told her that she could sing. She cannot. She cannot sing. We've proven that she cannot sing.
If you're a lady and you got lady vocal cords, and
I have lady vocal cords.
I know. And you you've worn yours out with screaming over the years. Yours has texture. I don't know that she's ever raised her voice in her life. Yes, I know. But I'm talking like if you have those notes available to you, which ladies do in general up to a certain point. If you're going to show people you could sing, you kind of got to swing for the fences. Singing like Tom Petty right out of the gate to show you can sing is not showing you can sing.
No,
sorry.
And Tom Petty told them to stop doing that, and they're like,
"Yes,
she's like, it's my song." No, it isn't.
Well, his state did, yeah.
It's like she went into one of those recording booths at the mall with a glass of wine and.
All right, look. When I first came to LA,
I'm not saying it's a bad place to do those things. I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. When
I first came to LA, I had very little tape, okay, and I had to include something in there that
But you have talent, Hal. That's different.
Nobody knew that though, and I had to go to a little place on Westwood Boulevard near UCLA. This strange little place that had karaoke booths with a camera and a green screen, and record a version of "Here I Go Again" by Whitesnake, and
awesome.
Against the green screen background of it. And I found the audio of it not too long ago, and I was like, not that bad. I mean, not anywhere near where I am these days, but I hit the notes and held them. And but the video of it, I wish I could find. It's got to be out there somewhere. It's gotta. See, I need that to come back and haunt me.
You need to come up to Portland and come to Low Bar Corral with us because you would love it so much. We sing contemporary songs with a live band in 3-part harmony.
Oh, I'm doing it.
We did a whole metal night once at a different venue, like a special all metal night that was glorious. And tomorrow for Halloween, oh, it's going to be great. We're like partnering with a Portland podcast. It's like they do spooky
Sure.
stories, and every year for Halloween, we always do
I've
the
got
annual playing of Don't Fear the Reaper, and everybody who owns a cowbell brings their cowbell.
Sure.
It's great.
I have
So
one. Yeah.
when you come to Portland, because you're going to come and do your show, and we're going to talk about bringing back Bridgetown, you also need to come when we're doing Low Bar, because to sing in this group of people, I'm holding you to the Bridgetown thing. Don't think I'm not.
Oh fuck yeah!
And
No,
so-
I've spoken
No,
more
we're
about
doing
it.
that.
I have an idea. We'll talk off. We gotta have a powwow about it.
For sure. But you
Yeah.
have to come and sing with us, because in all of this shit that's been going on, in all of everything, having this group therapy is like more important than ever. I can walk into that room tomorrow night. No one's going to talk about my nose or my Jewishness. They're going to talk about how I look cute, because we're all doing Barbie. All my friends and I are dressing up as various Barbies.
Yeah.
And so,
And you're gonna be old Jewish grandmother Barbie. It's the
No,
same
no,
costume
no,
you
no,
had
no,
yesterday
no,
or Saturday.
no. Jewish grandmother was for Saturday night, because I was going to be around a bunch of people I didn't give a fuck about. But
Sure.
these are my people. This
Understood.
is my community. And because it's the Low Bar Chorale, and I sing
As
in
you
the
do.
low harmony group with this
Right.
borderline tenor voice, I have a Low Bar Chorale t-shirt, and it just says low right here to represent my harmony part. And then I got
Oh.
a Barbie logo, and I'm going to be Low
Right.
Barbie.
Nice.
I set the bar low for Barbie, but I'm going to pink it up. I have pink pants, and I'm wearing my shirt and everything. We're just going to be, and it's also one of my closest friends' birthdays tomorrow. So we're allegedly going out to real karaoke tomorrow night afterwards. So that is going to negate the anti-Semitism that I experienced on Saturday night, but I don't think it's going to make me ever forget it.
Right.
I'll just be able to, but Steve is like a pariah now, and he's never getting invited back. And now
Poor
it's like, bye,
Steve.
Steve, and fuck Steve.
Oh,
Fuck
Steve.
Steve. Steve is going to learn that you can't say shit like that. Maybe he'll learn. I don't know. If he can be taught to unlearn his
No.
preconceived microaggressions, that it's okay to tell
No.
Jewish people that they have crooked noses or whatever, because he has a Jewish friend. If he can't unlearn that, it's not really my responsibility to do it.
Nope. He's gonna meet a woman, say that, who he finds out is Jewish, say the exact same fucking thing, and she's gonna go, "Where are you from?" Instead of like, "What
Maybe
are
I
you,
should
Irish?"
give him the.
And
I should find that woman on Twitter who was
she's
like,
gonna
well,
call
you know,
him a big Mick bastard or something like that, and he's gonna
people
laugh.
are doing that to me too, by the way, because they don't know that I'm a Jewish girl with an Irish name. So if I talk about politics, sometimes I get trolled with people saying, "Why don't you shut your fucking mouth, you dirty Mick?" I'm like, first of all, are you Archie Bunker? And then who says that? Who says Mick anymore?
Yeah, really.
And I'm like,
Old
I
school.
repeat it every so often. I have to be like, okay, geniuses in the MAGA brain trust. Dublin is my name, not my location. Duh. Eventually, I'd like to go back to Ireland, because the only time I've been to Ireland is when I was pregnant with my second son. That's not a good time to go to Ireland, because everyone, when they find out your name is Tara Dublin, Tara's the throne of the ancient Irish kings. Dublin, obviously. Everybody wanted to buy me a drink, and I couldn't, because I was 3.5 months
Because you're
pregnant.
fucking carrying around the next generation that are gonna run my island.
They were like, oh,
island.
Tara Dublin, Guinness is a drink. All pregnant Irish mums drink the Guinness.
Yeah,
And
that's how it
don't
makes it
be
come out
such an American.
quicker. You just that's how you have enough of that in you. And then when you're about to give birth, all you do is we throw a quarter on the ground. You lean down to pick it up, and pop, little fucker comes out.
And
That's
then
how
you get back behind the bar.
That's how Irish women give birth.
Get back behind there and sling that.
Throw a nickel on the ground and have them pick it up. Bloop, there it goes.
I contend that I need to come to Vegas, and I need to hang out with you too, because they're going to do the Sphere again in early 2024.
Yes.
Don't you think that you two should want to hang out with a girl named Tara Dublin? I think
insist.
so. Particularly,
Or they might be
and
over quota. We don't know.
I don't know. It's an odd connection, but when I went to Dublin, when I was pregnant with my second son, I went to the bathroom at the Clarence. That's the hotel U2 owns. Very nice bathrooms at the Clarence Hotel. But also, my name is Tara Dublin. Come on, Bono.
I'm going in there. There's a toilet attendant, and I'm slapping it down 100.
By the way, if you have
200.
HBO, if you have Max, Bono just did this Peter and the Wolf, this half-hour animated Peter and the Wolf that is delightful. I love Peter and the Wolf. I've loved it since I was a small child. It was one of my favorite memories with my grandmother, my mom's mom, Ethel, who I have this tattoo for. one of my earliest memories, like listening to Peter. And also Bono did that.
Yeah.
Do that. But you people are
Yeah,
like, Bono's
people- by the way,
Bono's
yeah,
uppity. I'm
hey,
like, yeah, well, whatever. I still want to go to Sphere, and I still want to hear all of Achtung Baby, and
Yeah.
I still want to go. So Bono, let's hang out. By the way, when we eventually manifest the streaming series of The Sound of Settling, I have
Mhm.
decided that Eve Hewson, who is Bono's daughter, Eve Hewson should play my lead. And when we adapt this
Sure.
series, I'm like officially
Great.
obsessed with her.
Everybody is
If you
convinced,
have-
by the way, that everybody's convinced that your next book should be about you almost sleeping with a guy named Bono, but not, but my friend Chris Bono, and being a, never mind,
Well,
we'll work it out.
I'm not going to almost sleep with anybody. She's dead inside. It's fine. Postmenopause, I don't care about. When I was talking to that Steve guy, I'm like, do I want to flirt with? No, nah.
With or without you.
Achtung Baby.
Without you,
I love
can
that album so
live.
much. It's so good. I love that album so much. Even if it came out right when I met my husband, my ex-husband,
Wow.
the husband and Achtung Baby are like linked, but I managed to move past the emotional thing because Achtung Baby is too good of an album to not listen to. Like, I'm fine with never listening to the stuff that my college boyfriend used to listen to. I can't listen to Pink Floyd or Grateful Dead or the
Oh my
Eagles
God.
or any of that shitty stuff. He wouldn't let me play REM on his
Jesus.
stereo, my college boyfriend. Fuck that guy. Anyway, but
Tara has more baggage than the Colorado airport during Christmas.
it's a lot.
It's a
If I
lot.
need to get a proper book deal and write a memoir, my memoir would fucking kill. It would. By the way, I still can't pay my rent on Wednesday. It's fine. Still unemployed. It's fine. Venmo, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah.
It's the shittiest
it-
time, Hal. Everyone is struggling so much right now. And I feel so like I have a lot of friends of mine who are out of work or who have lost work or are struggling financially, who have their rents have just gone up, but their salaries have not. I feel like October was a harsh realm for a lot of people. It was a rough month. And as we start this week, I'm trying to stay optimistic because you were talking about optimism earlier. We can try to end on an optimistic note.
Sure.
How do you stay optimistic when all of this negativity is all around us and people are talking about abandoning Twitter and doing these other things? There are still good people. There are still good people out here, and we find each other. We just do. Good people. The good people find each other, and we need to stay together and support each other and be vocal in our support of each other.
You know what's always probably helped me build this skill more than anything else is the fact that I've had to audition for every job I've ever had, which is very different than just having them hiring you based on your resume and other stuff or whatever. The fact that you have to actually show up versus show up and be like, I can be presentable and businesslike, but you actually have to deliver whatever emotion is there, and you have to look, at least clean. And there was a period. So it's so funny. After the break-in this weekend, I was telling Ethan and his girl about my kind of experience on that side of crime. And I was dating this girl in LA, and my car was acting up. So when I got to her house, we were going to go on a date. We were going to go see Howard's End. I'll never forget it. And we're going to the Lemley Sunset 5, and she lived close to there. I was going to pick her up, but my car was being weird. So I was like, maybe you should drive to the theater or whatever, and I'll worry about this when I'm going home. And we went to the movie. We had a lovely evening. We come back, and there's a puddle of glass where my car used to be. And I have no money for another car. The idea that, that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm a broke actor. There's nothing. There's nothing coming in, nothing. Car's gone, that's it. Took the bus for a year until I could afford the down payment on what was this used Mitsubishi Montero, where you could see through the floor on the passenger side, that I drove to death. I drove that until I bought a car with Talk Soup money. Literally to that part. I drove it for the first half of me doing Talk Soup, like half a year on television before I could buy a car. So anyways, so car's gone, and I have to take a bus. And at one point, I had an audition in Hollywood, and I couldn't get a ride from anybody, and I only had bus fare there. So I was going to have to walk back from Hollywood to Valley Village, which is,
Ooh.
yeah, that's a hike. I don't know what the equivalent is wherever you are. Whatever is way farther than you would walk, but you know it's there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Next county, whatever your next county, walking to the
Mhm.
next county is usually what it is for most people. So yes, and by the way, the turn signals and the brake lights had gone out on my car, and the power steering was listing to the port. So I'm assuming the person who stole it died in a fiery crash trying to drive
Well,
away.
that's karma.
Yeah,
So,
I never saw it
literally
again. Yep.
karma.
So,
I have thanks.
anyways,
I'll be here all week.
so I went to this audition. I was like, I can't walk there, like leave at 6 a.m. and assume I'll get there and take the bus back because I can't be a sweaty mess at the audition. So I took the bus to the audition, got out, did the audition. It was a complete, it was ass. There was no way I was getting it. It was one of those auditions where I realized sitting in the room, they ain't looking for me. It ain't, and it's not rejection. I don't believe in that bullshit. Right. They've got other ideas. That's not them rejecting me. That's them doing their thing, and they have every right to.
Right, and I don't fit the vision. That's cool.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I get up and I leave Hollywood, and luckily it was in Hollywood, not like West Hollywood or fucking, down on Wilshire or some shit where it would have been, a third farther. So I walk back and I have 35 cents to my name. That's it. There's no debit card. There's no nothing. 35 cents. And I want to say it was like 102 that day because it was summer. Ugh. And I'm walking back over the hill, and there's a 7-Eleven kind of gas station thing on Cahuenga Boulevard, right where I'm gonna basically turn and go right. I'm gonna walk past the Warner Brothers in a couple of miles that way, but I'm fucking dying, and I don't have a water bottle or anything like that I could fill up or something. So I literally, those things where you could fill up those giant jugs of water that people do, and they only cost back then. They cost 25 cents to fill up one of the smaller ones because you bring your own bottle. So I literally leaned back under I lifted up the thing, and I stuck my face under it. I put a quarter in, and then it beeped 3 times, and then it just poured water. I waterboarded myself basically, and I just drank as much as I could possibly drink of it. While I was holding my nose and just going gulp, gulp, just as water just poured down, soaking me to the bone. Like one of those things like walking in the rain wet where your underwear and your socks are like slushy wet. But it was so hot I didn't give a fuck.
Right.
And I was dry by the time I got home. It was that far and that hot.
Yeah.
But I laughed my ass off. The whole way back, I had 10 cents to my name, no fucking car.
Yeah.
At that point, the apartment that I was staying in, my roommate had split and left me $3,000 worth of unpaid bills. That's why I didn't have any money, because he had run up the phone bill and hadn't paid the rent. And I came back from shooting the first movie I ever did, which was Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town, which later became Chrome Hearts. Or vice versa. It was Chrome Hearts originally. It was a spoof of zombie and biker chick films mashed together. It was very meta, very silly. But I'd been filming in Death Valley. We'd run out of money for the production up there, so they had we didn't have catering, so they had a woman in town cook for us, and everybody got sick. So I come back and I literally have finally I've made some money. All of it plus $100 is gone. I'd made $3,000. That was my take home after everything, $3,000, and the bills were $3,100. And I had a jar of fucking change that I went through over the next couple of weeks. That's what I was down to. I was down to that fucking change. And I was walking back, and I'm listening to the squish of my fucking socks and laughing my ass off at the moment I had where I thought this was hard. Because I was like, fuck. Well, at one moment, I'm like, well, all right, asshole. You're not trapped under a piece of fucking rubble. You're not bleeding from your ass. Calm down. You know, this is bad, but this too shall pass.
Right.
And if you don't get it together, your whole job is predicated on your cheery nature. That's where comedy comes from. If you can't see the positive through this shit, you don't have the skill to be a comedian anymore. So refining that was necessary.
Right.
But so it's been a survival instinct as well. But that's a true story of a real circumstance that I really had, and it was fucking brutal. And then years later, I won't say who she is. She's a famous actress, Oscar-winning actress, by the way, that I had done a pilot with. And when she was nobody. As a matter of fact, it was the same pilot. It was the pilot that Marta Kaufman and David Crane and Kevin Bright did opposite Friends. Guess which one went?
Ah ha ha.
And I had a bit part in that they, like this comic relief long hair guy I was like, finally a role I don't have to cut my fucking hair and I can be funny and they're cool with it. And it was gonna, single camera, super awesome. And by the way, they're lovely to work with. But I saw her before she won her Oscars and all that kind of shit. And she was driving up to an audition, and I was walking out of Warner Brothers because my fucking car had been stolen. And I see her as I'm walking down to catch the bus near Warner Brothers. And she's driving up, and I was like, hey, how are you? And she goes, oh, it's just terrible. It's just bad. You could tell she'd had like 3 bad auditions in a row. And it's just that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I leaned on her, in her car door, and talked to her for a minute. And I'm like, you're fucking beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you different. You're super talented. There's a broad range of stuff out there, and and just remember, it ain't you. They got something else they're doing, just like you do. You have an idea about a character. It might be different from what they think, and it just doesn't work. That's cool, because you will find a place for it. And I was there for like 20 minutes, is like before she went to this audition, because she was early, anyways, we're chit-chatting. And I'm not going to take credit for her Oscars, but I will take credit for helping her over that hump, and which made it slightly possible. And that's why, because I've seen the value of that kind of optimism in practice.
It's contagious.
It added to her life, and it saved mine in the right moment, right? It helped me. That attitude helped me put one foot in front of the other in a time when I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. That's always what it's all about. Like, you just get up and, was it Halle Berry? No, it was not. It was Hillary Swank. Yeah, it was. Somebody said it in the chat room because she was in the pilot. Yeah, it's Hillary. And I've always, I played a guy in that pilot who had a crush on her. Super easy.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not
super
really an
easy
challenge.
I
try to put out the optimism too. If I hear and it's interesting too, because it's so much easier for us to give advice to other people than for us to take it, or for us to listen to our own advice as we're dispensing it to our friends. Because usually the advice we end up giving is advice we should be taking. So, and like, if I hear my friends get down on themselves, I'm like, don't talk about my friend like that.
Yeah.
I love my friend. Don't talk about my friend like that. My friend is amazing.
I say
brilliant.
The same thing to the voice in my head if I get down on anything. Say the same fucking thing.
Right. And because I'm here by myself, like when I came home on Saturday night, I was so upset and angry. I wasn't set. Like when I get angry, I cry.
Because an anti-Semite wanted to sleep with you.
Yeah. I mean, it just made me want to peel my skin off. You know,
Sure.
Like I walked around I couldn't sit down.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to physically do with. There was no one here to give me a hug, And so in those moments, I picked up the cat. Well, I picked up Duke, who's a little bit even bigger than Maxine, and gave him a good hug. And I looked around and I said, I do not have a bad life. I'm in a bad moment. This is what I do when I get a rejection from an agent, or I couldn't get an interview to work a retail job at Anthropology. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not good enough to sell your $250 t-shirts and your $45 candles. Great. That means something better is coming.
Right.
I can't work there. Something better is coming. I have to believe that. I know what I have. I know I'm talented. I know I have a lot to offer. The reviews for this book are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're great.
Ridiculous. Like,
see?
All of them are overwhelmingly positive, where people are like, I started your book at 8:00 and I looked up and it was 11:30 and I can't put your book down and it's amazing and it would be a great movie, a great series. People I don't know, who are not my mom or my cousin, are saying these things. And so that's incredibly gratifying. And I have to believe that there's a bigger audience that's going to continue to grow, that's going to catch the attention. and just become a thing while I still continue to try to work on other things. And I'll audition for anything. I'll try out for anything. If you think I can be in it, on it, write for it, perform in it, do it. It's getting the person to say yes to you. It's finding the yes person and staying optimistic and keeping your faith in yourself.
Yeah. I would
Again,
say
not a partner here to be like, you're going to be fine. You know, it's just me doing that.
My thing is just be the yes anyways. Like
I love being the
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I do that. And I talk about, you know, I want to be the yes so that I can be a yes for another person.
Right.
You know, like paying it forward and
yes.
giving people. And we've talked about that too. Like if this becomes a streaming series, like how many of my friends can I hire? How many of my friends can I give work in front of the camera, behind the camera? Make it I want to know that I can give jobs to so many people.
Oh yeah, we'll save this for the other because we went an extra half hour, which I think is lovely. But it's okay. One of these days, it's the only way you and I can both fit enough words in edgewise because that's how we are. But one of these days, I'll give you the old what it's really like hiring your friends speech and why I understand
about people I worked with on Grimm.
Yeah, no, I agree.
My friends work as extras and shit.
Yeah.
Letting my son be a PA.
Believe me, I've seen
there's a part
both.
for you, Hal. There's always a part for you.
Oh, I mean, of course. But that's I've experienced the entire spectrum.
I'm sure.
And from the absolute like joy-filled invigoration of letting, you know, giving somebody their kind of first real toehold job so they can work, and then the absolute just grotesque betrayal version of that, or to the heartbreaking version. So anyways,
working for
I have to run and you have to run, and it's we went a half hour over because that's what we do. Don't forget to pick up her book.
Thank you, everybody.
The Sound of Settling. Yep, and we adore you. And follow her on the Shitter Machine as long as it still exists.
Shitter and Shit Talk also on the Shit Talk, and I just passed 5,000 followers on the Tickety Talker, and thanks to the anti-Semitic thing that I shared, I gained like 400 followers over the weekend. So people are actually seeing me. Maybe Elon is tired of suppressing me because I won't let him. I don't know. Somebody bought me a blue check, so that was nice of him.
I think he forgets to throw the suppression button. He forgets to flip the switch on the suppression machine.
Well, he needs to do something because Twitter is worth 10% of what it used to be. So good. Nice job, successful businessman.
Yeah, Fidelity said 65. They wrote off 65% of their investment in it.
Holy shit. All right. Sound of Settling is available right now at Amazon.com.
That's right.
And on the Kindle, where almost 9,000 pages have been read. Almost 9,000 pages.
There you go. See?
Right?
Let's
go. We have to go viral.
Let's go 10K. Let's break the 10K mark. Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Yep, and then we'll have an authors roundtable with you and Ginger, and you can both talk about writing a book.
That sounds fabulous.
Awesome.
And then we got to talk offline about Bridgetown and bringing that joy back.
Insist. Yep.
Have a good week, everybody. Who knows what we'll be talking about next Monday?
Oh boy. Bye. Thanks so much. Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it, and thank you guys for joining me today. Appreciate it. Why is the green screen's over? That's what it was. I see. I don't need as much of a green screen on this guy. I've got tweaking to do because I had to fuck around with the camera there, you know, with the fucking thing earlier today, so I'm half invisible, which is not fun. Let's see. Oh, I know what I need. That's funny. I have stuff to do after the show, so I'll just solve it then. So anyways, love you guys. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. I'll see you this afternoon for the afternoon show because you're awesome like that, and so am I, and it's great, and all that kind of stuff. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, Venmo, nothing but Venmo. Show us your shirt. This is a Boston Brian shirt. It says hold them accountable, and it's got Donald Trump sideways and a elephant in prison, whatever. It's just cool. He gave me this at Sexy Liberal, and I thought I'd represent because it's really cool. Anyways, love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And remember, more than anything else,